Yes, we've made a decision.
Well, it's a Joe show. We've seen it. Nobody wants to be there. It's a big bad show tonight. Just can't take this damn parade. Who cares? Yeah, Joe show. There's a 2-mile wait to get past the damn green line.
Anyone who gets scared by a bear in the neighborhood, call Bill Murray.
I happen to trust Bill Murray.
First time I ever met Joe Murray was at a Hooters.
I like that.
Vomit. Whoa.
Skaz, I'm back. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Wednesday night. Happy hump day to you and yours. Hopefully y'all celebrating. Great to catch up. It's been a few weeks since I did a night shift, and we have a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. By the way, Doug Kyde just tweeted that Gerard Mayo will hold an 8:30 a.m. news conference tomorrow morning. Interesting. Somewhat strange. The fact that he just held a press conference at 1:15 earlier today, he's back at it tomorrow morning at 8:30. I would have to believe, maybe I'm crazy, but I'd have to believe that has to do with the quarterback thing, right, Skaz?
I think that's a safe assumption there.
And here's the thing. I guess you'd say that Mayo spoke with the team after practice today, right? Because they had practice after his press conference. He said he wanted to speak to the entire team. Many people thought that would mean tomorrow during the day. Maybe we'd get some kind of an announcement tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. But now that Mayo is going to have a press conference at 8:30 tomorrow morning, writing's on the wall. He's going to tell us who the starting quarterback is for the Patriots tomorrow morning. And I thought Mayo saying he wanted to talk to the team, wanted to talk to individuals, it made sense. It made sense. It was a sensible approach, but I only speak for myself. This is Nick Cattles. It's not anybody else on the station. It's not even Skaz. I thought it was a sensible approach by Mayo to say, we're going to hold off. I want to talk to the guys. I want to let them know. People said, why not today? Well, today there was a lot of business going on. Some of you might not believe that. Some of you might not buy into the idea that they had to get other business done, but I completely believe that Mayo and Elliott Wolf were sitting around today figuring out the roster stuff. A lot of guys getting waived, a lot of guys getting signed, trying to get guys to the practice squad. That takes precedent. You take care of that stuff this morning. You get that done. Then you go to practice. After practice, you talk to the players. The players have been talked to. Now you have a press conference tomorrow morning. And we're all awaiting this announcement. But maybe we don't have to wait. Maybe, just maybe, Mayo himself gave us a little bit of a hint today.
I would say one thing. I think it's important to remember, what's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. And so I think the challenge is you want to win every single game now, but also we're trying to build something special here in New England. So that to me was, that was a challenge.
Quote, I think it's important to remember what's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. And so I think the challenge is you want to win every single game now, but also we're trying to build something special here in New England. So that, to me, was a challenge. Now, I heard some of the guys talking earlier today that you could take this either way. You could read that as, hey, Jacoby Brissett is your starting quarterback. You could possibly read that as Drake Maye being your starting quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is the starting quarterback of this Patriots team. Can we just get that out there? Is it not obvious by now? Even today at practice, Brissett was leading the ones. I would be stunned I would be absolutely freaking stunned if I woke up tomorrow morning and found out that Jacoby Brissett was quarterback 2. And I know Mark Bertrand hates QB1, QB2. Oh, well, Mark, that's how I say. Shorten it up. Keep it efficient. I'd be stunned if the Patriots decide to go with Drake Maye week 1. It'd go against everything that we've seen through camp, through the preseason, through the joint practice, up until today when Brissett is out there leading the ones again, leading every drill. Maybe the Patriots are playing a little bit of an okey-doke here. The media only gets to see so much of the practice, and then they get pushed away. So maybe something is happening differently behind closed doors when nobody is watching. But listening to Mayo and what he just said, it makes all the sense in the world that he's talking about Brissett. What's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. Does that sound like they're going to start Drake Maye? Does Drake Maye make any sense when you actually think about that line? What's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. So do you think that Mayo is out there today saying, hey, we start Drake Maye, but what's good for today, starting Drake Maye, may not be good for the team weeks down the line? That makes no sense. You're throwing the rookie quarterback under the bus. You're saying, hey, right now, it's a good idea to start Maye. But weeks from now, it's not a good idea. It's the exact opposite, right? It's a good idea, I think, for Alex Van Pelt, because I think Alex Van Pelt is making this decision. I think it makes more sense for Van Pelt to say to Gerard Mayo, look, we start Brissett. And if/when Maye is ready, or if/when we've had enough of Brissett, we pull the trigger, we put the rookie in there. Not vice versa. I've said this from the very beginning. If you start Drake Maye and he stinks for whatever reason, it's very difficult to pull him off the field. Now it's the biggest story here for the rest of the football season. It is so much easier for everybody involved to start Jacoby Brissett and then bench the veteran who will handle the benching. The crowd is excited, right? If you start off in suck world, which we all pretty much expect with the first 4 games of this season, if you start 0-4, you start 0-5, whatever it is, fans have something to look forward to. If you start Drake Maye week 1 and you walk into the world of suck and you're 0-5, 0-6, what do we have to look forward to? Good luck. Enjoy the rest of the year, right? Sometimes what's good now is not good later. Jacoby Brissett. Starting Jacoby Brissett could be argued it's good now, but not by week 7, week 8, week 9. Mayo also said that he wants to win now, but we're also building something special. You know what I took that as? I took that as Gerard Mayo, the head coach, is tempted to go with Drake Maye. He's tempted to go to Drake Maye to start this season. You want to know why? Because Mayo knows, like everybody else knows, Drake Maye is the more talented quarterback. And so I think Gerard Mayo's telling us he wants to win now, but he also wants to build something special. And the more talented quarterback is Maye. So if you wanted to win now, if you're going just off of talent, you would start Maye week 1. But they're looking to build something special, which means they're going to be patient with Maye. They're not going to rush to the more talented guy because they want right now. That's how I took it. And if you're wondering, I have no issue with starting Jacoby Brissett week 1. 0.0 issue with that. The offensive line still has to settle. You got to figure out who your best 5 is. Yes, it's outrageous. It's August 28th, and we're still talking about who is the best 5 up front. I understand. But that's where this team is. You need this offensive line to just settle down a little bit. Get your best 5 out there. Build trust within that front. I don't want Maye out there if you're shuffling dudes in and out. I don't want to try to set him back with a footwork progression. I don't want to stunt his growth in any way because all of a sudden he's looking around looks like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to figure out what the hell is happening in front of him. I don't want to see that. I don't want to live through that. And yes, he still might have to do some of that by week 6, 7, 8, 9, whenever he starts. I understand. But it's less likely for him to have to deal with that by week 5, week 6. As Bill Belichick has always said, and many others in football, you don't know who your team is until you're a month in. You have no idea. You have no clue what your team. You might think you know what your team is, but you don't know until through the first month when you see how guys respond to certain situations. You see them play in this scheme. You don't know what you have. You have a much better handle on your football team by week 5 or 6 than you do week 1. That's the difference. I don't want trial by fire with Drake Maye out there, especially when you start the season at Cincinnati. Then you play Mike McDonald. I'm not talking about the singer. I'm not taking it to the streets, okay? I'm talking about the defensive coordinator of the Ravens who went to Seattle in the offseason, and he's now the head coach. That guy will throw a bunch of exotic looks at Drake Maye. Week 2, the second game of his NFL career, and the kitchen sink is flying at Maye with a questionable offensive line that you haven't settled yet. Does that sound like a good idea? Doesn't sound like a good idea to me, and it's not because I think Drake Maye is going to melt. I just don't want a bleep show out there. And then after Seattle, you got a short week against the Jets. Robert Saleh. He might not be a very good head coach, but he's a very good defensive mind. That Jets defense is no freaking joke. So you've got at Cincinnati, you've got Mike McDonald, you've got the Jets on a short week, Thursday Night Football, and then you have to fly all the way across the country to go against that San Francisco 49ers defense. No way, no how. Good luck, Jacoby. Enjoy the first month. Figure out the offensive line. Figure out your wide receivers. Who do you trust? Does Jalen Polk step up, right? Is he truly a guy who can give you 4 or 5 catches a week? Does Javon Baker wake up from his coma? He showed some flashes against Washington. Does he wake up? See what you have around the quarterback. Solidify it. And get it as strong as you can. So when Maye steps out there, he's ready. And not only is he ready, but the rest of the team is ready. Now, my biggest question is this. When do you start giving Maye legitimate reps at practice? Your bye is not until December. So if you're going to start Drake Maye before Halloween, you best figure out the way to go with reps. When do you start getting closer to 50-50? When to get to 60-40? That's going to be the biggest part of the process now, because you have to get Maye ready for him to eventually start by week, 6, 7, because I don't think it's going to go much further beyond that. But how do you build those reps? Because usually backup quarterbacks, they're not getting reps at practice. So when does that process start? But here's my question to you. Nick Cattles on a Wednesday night in for Joe Murray, 617-779-0985. If you had the opportunity to name a starting quarterback tomorrow morning, you are Gerard Mayo. You have an 8:30 a.m. press conference. Who are you announcing to be the starting quarterback? Is it Brissett? Is it Maye? 617-779-0985. We'll get to your phone calls. Also, Mayo tried to put some toothpaste back in the tube. Did it work? That's next.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray. More Joe Murray.
Nick Cattle's on a hump night. Skaz behind the glass. Alex Barth in studio from 8 to 10. 2 powerful hours with Alex Barth in studio. Should be a really good time. That was Gerard Mayo from earlier today. And Mayo trying to put that toothpaste back in the tube. I'll explain in a minute. First, let's go to Jim in Rhode Island. Hey, Jim.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm not really sure. I haven't seen the Patriots plane move out of Warwick in some weeks. But maybe they're going to sign La'el Collins because it's on the tarmac, 1. 2, he tipped his hand. Anybody who has common sense knows it's going to be Brissett with how he said exactly what you quoted. The question is, how quickly can they make the offensive line better? And are there pieces to trade away? Have a good night.
All right, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Here's how I would look at the offensive line if you're a fan. And I know many of you will find this incredibly unfortunate. I would look at this offensive line as if who you have in the locker room right now is who you're going to have this season. Now, yes, maybe something pops up randomly, right? There's always a sliver of possibility, but I don't think that's happening. You might be able to go out and sign somebody like a Charles Leno or go out and get a David Bakhtiari. But do you really believe? Do you really believe that those guys are going to make an immediate impact? There's a reason why they haven't signed. So I don't think there's some great unknown answer out there. You're not going to trade for somebody like Trent Williams because, A, Trent Williams wants to win. He's like 37 years old. B, I don't think the Niners are interested in trading Williams anywhere. C, it doesn't make sense for you. You're going to bring somebody in for a year on big money so you win, 6 or 7 games and then they walk out? And what's the point? I guess you could say, the points get better. But if the Patriots feel like they're going to go out there and, give Vidarian Lowe a shot, for example, and see how that works. Vidarian Lowe's younger, and you're looking at a team that's rebuilding. So I just don't think you're a great option for a really good tackle that's on the older side. Look at what happened with Tyron Smith. I don't think Smith was interested whatsoever in signing here because he wants to win. And he's looking at somewhere like the New York Jets and saying, Aaron Rodgers, chance to win, right? But I agree with you, Jim. I think Brissett's the quarterback, and we'll find that out tomorrow at 8:30 during this Gerard Mayo press conference. He was not supposed to have a press conference tomorrow morning, so I think it's rather obvious why that change of plans has happened. Now let's get back to that toothpaste. Last week, Mayo was talking about who was going to make the decision on the starting quarterback. And he talked about collaborating. That's been one of the magical words since Bill Belichick left. Collaborating, collaborative, collaboration, right? And so Mayo went on to list like 100 people. I'm exaggerating, but it was, I'm going to be involved, and Van Pelt's going to be involved, and Elliott Wolf's going to be involved. And then at one point, I think he said the offensive staff is going to be involved. And you're like, whoa, you got a team of 25 people in the room. What are we doing here? I thought I was going to get a phone call asking who I would start. Well, Mayo sounded a bit different today.
How many people we talk about collaboration, we're on the same page. How many people are involved with the decisions made in the quarterback? How many people are in the room saying,
yeah, it really, if you want to talk about the process, Alex, myself, we just have those conversations, but, he gets input from his coaches as well. And ultimately, it's my decision to make.
Ultimately, it's my decision. He was much more firm with making everybody know today, I'm going to have the call. I am making the call. And you can't help but believe Mayo changed his approach with the media today because of what was being said. about how he handled it last week, because the way he handled it last week opened the door for speculation. Well, who's going to make the decision? Is it Van Pelt? Is it Mayo? Is it Jonathan Kraft? Is it the spooky, mysterious Robin Glazer that people keep talking about? Who's going to make that decision? And Mayo, I think he went out there today to make it a point saying, I'm going to be the guy. But I think all of this is semantics, folks. I think what Mayo said last week, semantics. What he said today, pretty much semantics. You want to know why? Because I don't think there's any way on God's green earth that Gerard Mayo is going to overrule Alex Van Pelt. I don't think it's going to happen. Could he? Absolutely. Does he have the right to? Yes. Would he? I'm not buying it. I don't think Mayo, when they're having this conversation about who to start at quarterback, and Alex Van Pelt, for example, stands up and says, we should start Jacoby Brissett because Jacoby has a much better understanding of the offense. He's better at the line of scrimmage. He's better under center. We have a tough first month of the schedule. We want to make sure that we have everything set, especially the offensive line, before we put May out there. I don't think Gerard Mayo is going to stand up and say, Alex, thank you for the opinion, but it doesn't matter. We're going to start May. I don't think Mayo is going to do that. Mayo came out and said that Van Pelt is the head coach of the offense. Why is he the head coach of the offense? Because he has the experience on that side of the ball. He played the position in the NFL for years. He's been a quarterback's coach for years. He understands the nuance of playing that position. I don't think Mayo is going to sit there in that room and say, Alex, I understand why you want to start Jacoby, but we're going to go with Drake. I just don't see that conversation playing out that way. I think Mayo is going to lean on Van Pelt. And yes, it will look like Mayo made the decision because he's the head coach. He will make the announcement. But I just don't think he's going to override Van Pelt's opinion in that room. Head coaches, they want to win now. And if Gerard Mayo is the one that truly picks the quarterback, you feel like he might go with his gut versus patience, well thought out process as far as that side of the football goes, right? Gerard Mayo's a defensive guy. Defensive guys think, who's the most dangerous quarterback? Maye's more dangerous. He's the more talented guy. Van Pelt's the one thinking about all the intricacies, all the minutia that you and I get bored with from time to time. Maybe a lot of the time. That's Van Pelt's job. Van Pelt's job was to come to New England and develop who you picked at number 3. He was going to be hands-on. He was going to be the guy that would have that heavy hand with the young quarterback. And I don't think that Gerard Mayo is going to bring Alex Van Pelt in the room, the guy who has worked with Maye all through camp, understands the position as good, if not better, than anybody else in the building, save maybe for Ben McAdoo. I don't think Mayo's going to bring him in and say, I'm going to go against your word. You want Jacoby? We're going with Maye. Sorry, coach. I just don't see it playing out that way. So no matter who weighs in, no matter how much of a collaboration it truly is, no matter how Gerard Mayo announces this tomorrow morning, I firmly believe whoever is going to start week 1, that came from Alex Van Pelt. He was the one that had the stroke in the room, and Mayo was not going against that guy. And I do think it's a fair question. You know, where is Ben McAdoo in this process? He's been very silent. A big reason why he was brought in was to deal with the quarterback position. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Wednesday night. Alex Barth will join us in 30 minutes. He'll be in studio for 2 full hours, 8 to 10. We'll get to your phone calls. Also, we'll have a critical update on one Patriot and more coming up.
Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox and Blue Jays back at it tonight at Fenway. Brian Bayo with the start. Red Sox lead 1-0 heading to the top of vaccination is not the only news coming from Gillette over the last 24 hours or so. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray tonight with Abney. Lots going on. Waiver wires, claims, practice squads. Man, the true excitement of the football season. Last 24 hours. We'll get to that in a minute. By the way, did you see this Mike Lombardi stuff or hear it? Going out there and saying that Mike Onwenu gained 80 pounds.
Yeah, I saw Devin Godchow has responded on Twitter. Not a fan, I don't believe.
Let's just think about this for a minute, okay? And I'll get to your calls in a moment. But Onwenu and Godchow tweeted out 80 pounds is crazy with a bunch of laughing emojis. Onwenu plays at like 350. Let me ask you this. Skaz, do you think Patriots beat writers, talk show hosts, I was out there. I went to 5 or 6 padded practices, right? Do you think that any of us would have noticed if Mike Onwenu was walking around at 430 pounds?
I have to go out on a limb and say I think someone would have noticed that.
Over $4 bills. If he's walking around at 430, you don't think anybody would say, holy crap, Mike Onwenu looks like he ate Mike Onwenu. Like, what are we doing? And by the way, Onwenu told Karen Garigian of Mass Live that, no, he did not gain 80 pounds. And that's crazy. Ridiculous. We know Lombardi's tied at the hip with Bellichick, so he's just going to crap on everything the Patriots do. The agenda is showing. Hey, Mike, your agenda is showing, buddy. Might want to tuck that in. Let's go to John in Rhode Island. Hey, John.
Hey, Nick. How you doing?
Doing well, bud.
So, yeah, 2 things. First of all, Mike Lombardi. I mean, I respect the guy, worked for Al Davis, Bill. I understand that. But the dude's totally out of touch. You're right. His agenda is showing. The second thing is you got to start the kid. I know what they want to do down there, but, I mean, just look at the eye test and what happens when he's in the game. He moves the ball, and I think that's important. I think we just need to see if he sinks or swims.
All right, John, thank you. Appreciate the phone call. A couple things about Drake Maye's preseason. I agree with you, John. He looked like the better quarterback out there, right? And I am as excited as anybody about Drake Maye, and I think he has taken some serious steps during the last couple of months. The process is working. His progress is evident. However, we also have to understand that it's the preseason. And we're talking vanilla defenses. We're talking about, the Patriots calling some plays that he had in his back pocket at UNC to just make him feel comfortable. We're talking about 2s and 3s. And Jacoby Brissett, you could say this all, and I understand. Jacoby Brissett played against the same 2s and 3s for the most part, right? And Brissett is seeing vanilla defenses, and Drake Maye played better than him. But Brissett has seen a lot more than Maye has. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's the right thing to sit Drake Maye for a few weeks, figure out your offensive line, let him stand there on the sidelines and see the game play out. He can look at the pictures and see what defenses are doing, how they're attacking, all of that stuff. I think it makes sense. I'm as excited as anybody to watch Maye play football. And I think he's going to be really good. And I've said that since before the draft. I was a Drake Maye guy. I might end up being wrong, but I was a Maye guy. And I loved the pick when they made it. I believe in him. I think he's got some special traits. But I also think settle things down in front of him. Figure out your wide receiver pecking order. And don't rush him out there against those 4 teams to start the season. Because at Cincinnati, Seattle, at the Jets on a short week, at San Francisco, that's pretty brutal. Those are 4 pretty damn good defenses with, good defensive coordinators. So I don't have much of an issue with the plan. All right, let's get to some other news and notes about the Patriots today that don't have to do with the quarterback position. City So. Gerard Mayo told the media today that So did not. He did not sustain a major injury. That's big news. So from the beginning of camp until, he went out with that injury, he's either been the second or third best offensive lineman in totality at camp. He's done pretty damn well. I would say Owenu, Layden Robinson, and so. And I know people have seen the Washington game and that, they're going through it right now. I get it. But I'm talking about the overall camp. Those have really been your best 3 offensive linemen. So not getting injured, seriously, that's great news because it also gives you options now at tackle. If So is out, now you're going to play Layden Robinson maybe on the left side, right? You want Nick Leverett to still be your backup center for now because there's not many great options out there. So if Sidy So is out for any extended period of time, now you're dealing with, okay, we got to slide somebody over to left guard. You might have to put Owenu at right guard, I would imagine, right? I would imagine your starting guards, you cut Antonio Mafi yesterday. He had no chance of getting on the field anyway. But you would have, I would think, Layden Robinson on the left side and Owenu on the right side. Now you got to figure out both tackle spots. At least you have Owenu, right tackle backup plan. That is alive and well with So healthy. Because now you could put Layden Robinson at right guard, So at left guard, Owenu right tackle, Andrew center, and just figure out what to do at left tackle. So that's some big news. Christian Barmore, he was put on the non-football injury list with a return designation. Gerard Mayo said today that that's not really having to do with anything as far as like he's coming back. They want to keep the door open. So they're leaving the door open. They have not ruled Barmore out for the year. I still say just get better, right, as a human being, get healthy, and then we figure out the football part. We all know the impact that young man has on the field. He was a beast the last 2 months of 2023. Bailey Zappi, he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad earlier today, and this impacts the Patriots, obviously, right? The Patriots now have no veteran quarterback presence outside of Brissett. You are officially rolling with Brissett and 2 rookies. And I think the argument could be made, and many have made it, that Maye is ready to play. Joe Milton ain't ready. So it's interesting to see how they will deal with this. I mean, if Jacoby Brissett goes out with an injury in week 1 or week 2, you really have no other option but to throw Maye out there. Even if you're Van Pelt and you don't think he's quite 100% ready, you really have no other option now. If you had Zappi on the practice squad, you could call him up. You could play games. If you tried to get Milton to the practice squad and kept Zappi on the roster, and I'm not a Zappi guy, but if you just wanted the quote-unquote sacrificial lamb veteran quarterback in case Brissett got hurt to hold you over until week 5 or 6, that's no longer an option because Zappi's gone. And good for Bailey Zappi. Obviously a great spot to land. Cornerback, interesting. Isaiah Bolden cut. Sean Wade cut. I have no idea how Marcellus Dial made this team. He was terrible against Philly. He was terrible against Washington. He was not very good at practice towards the tail end of camp, but yet he's still on the roster. The only thing I could come up with is that this front office, they wanted Marcellus Dial on this team because they just drafted him. And maybe Isaiah Bolden wasn't as much of an Elliott Wolf guy as Dial was. But now you're looking at cornerback, Alex Austin, Marco Wilson, and Dial are the 3 guys who are really battling the depth chart there beyond the top 3, which is Gonzo and the Joneses. And you're good with Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, and Jonathan Jones. But as we know, Marcus Jones has not been able to stay on the field very often. Jonathan Jones is 31, so you want to make sure you got some depth there. And they're going to rely on Alex Austin, Marco Wilson, and Dial. If I had to guess, I think the order is Wilson, Austin, Dial. I think if one of your starting corners go down, I think Marco Wilson would be the first guy up. And then you'd have Austin, and then you'd have Dial. Meanwhile, Jalen Reagor got cut. Kayshon Boutte on the roster. Reagor made it through the first wave yesterday, was cut today. Boutte outplayed him. He outplayed him, and I think the Patriots made the right move here. Boutte played better than Reagor did, especially the last 2 or 3 weeks of this camp. And I also think it tells you the prior regime, we all know how much the prior regime loved special teams. This move alone, cutting Jalen Reagor and keeping Booty, tells you that this regime is not as in love with special teams and having guys who could play special teams as much as the prior regime did. You have to feel like Bill Belichick would have kept Reagor instead of Booty on this roster because Reagor can return kicks. That's not how this front office and this regime is rolling. Maybe Reagor ends up on the practice squad, but this tells us the Patriots are not as focused on special teams guys as they have been in the past. It also tells us this. They have a lot of confidence in Tyquan Thornton. And Evan Lazar is somebody who I highly respect, watched a ton of film. He tweeted just about an hour or two ago, film of Thornton, saying that Tyquan did nothing but get open in the preseason. He had a good camp. He came in like a lion. He had a couple weeks like a lamb, but then he found himself again. And he ended camp on a pretty good note. I'm not going to buy any Tyquan Thornton stock until I see him do things on the field in games that count. But this is confidence from the front office. It's confidence from the coaching staff. We think we can survive with Tyquan Thornton. We think he can be our X because Reagor's the only other guy on this roster aside from Thornton who had that kind of speed. Thornton is your one guy who has the speed element. Javon Baker could be an X, but he's not the fastest guy in the world. And Baker has not played well the last couple weeks. He fell off a cliff. So right now it's ride or die with Tyquan Thornton at the X. 6 wide receivers on the 53. Pop Douglas, your best receiver. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, not a surprise, just drafted. Tyquan Thornton, just mentioned. And, of course, you have KJ Osborne, who got better as camp went on, and Booty. And you just look at that, and the biggest word that comes to mind is youth. This is a young wide receiver room. Pop and Booty in their second year. Of course, Polk and Baker, both rookies. Thornton in his third year. That's a very, very young wide receiver room. And when Kendrick Bourne returns, I'd imagine that Kayshon Boutte is the one that's in the crosshairs, unless they decide to keep 7 receivers, which they could. 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Wednesday night. We'll get back to your calls. Also, a question that must be answered. No tip or tip. That's next.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
Cattle's in for Murray on a Wednesday night. Just a few minutes, Alex Barth will come on in, walking through the studio door, spend a couple hours with us. Hello to the YouTube world. How we doing out there? You have to say hello again. Got to mind my manners. I always forget to do that. To tip or not to tip. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's go to Gary in Franklin. Hey, Gary.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
So I got in the car and I heard you guys talking about Mike Lombardi and Weno. And so I was listening yesterday when Felger and Maz were doing clips of his podcast. And what I heard him say, so I don't know where this is being reported, that he said he gained 80 pounds, because what he said, what I heard him say, was that he reported in at 360. This is what he said at first. And then later on, another clip, he said he reported in at 380. So if you said he normally weighs 350, I know he's a big guy, 10 to 30 pounds overweight, 30 pounds overweight is, he ate quite a bit in the off season. So after signing that contract or whatever.
Yeah, Gary,
so, I don't know where the 80 pounds comes from.
Well, I'll tell you. This is directly from a story on Nesson, directly from the GM Shuffle podcast. Quote, they signed Mike Owenu and wanted him at right tackle, but he gained 80 pounds. So they got to move him to guard. That's where it comes from. That's
because they didn't play that clip. What they played was, he said he reported in at 360 at first, and then he said he reported in at 380. So there's a big difference. So he said a bunch of different things, apparently.
Yeah, he doesn't stop.
Well, anyway, regardless, I think he's interesting sometimes and whatever. And of course, he's biased towards Bellichick. He's worked for Walsh. He's worked for Davis.
Gary, thank you for the phone call, but we got to jump because we got Alex Barth coming in a few minutes. Look, I'm not saying that Mike Lombardi isn't somebody who doesn't know football. I'm simply saying that to say that Mike Owenu gained 80 pounds it's comical. It's ridiculous. He didn't gain 80 pounds. If he gained 80 pounds, he'd be 430 pounds. But let me quickly get to this because I teased it, and I want to talk about it. I want Skaz's thoughts on this quickly before we bring in Alex at 8 o'clock. 2 hours, 8 to 10, talking Patriots with all of you. Alex Barth will be joining us, 617-779-0985. So there's this story about a lotto ticket winner, and it's from UPI News. A Michigan man asked a store clerk to pick out a scratch-off lottery ticket for him, and the selection led to $500,000. The 55-year-old Kent County man told Michigan lottery officials he was plagued by indecision during his visit to the Kent Mini Mart on South Main Street in Kent City. Quote, I buy instant tickets 1 or 2 times a month, but I don't usually play cash word games. I was at the store, had $10 in my pocket, so I asked the clerk to give me a $10 ticket, and he handed me this luxury cash word ticket, unquote. The winner said his prize money will go toward buying a new house and a new truck. This lottery ticket winner made no mention of tipping the clerk. And I saw Barstool write about this. And I think this is an interesting conversation. So if you walk into a mini mart and you ask the clerk to pick you a ticket out, right? Say, can you pick out a ticket for me? They just grab any lottery ticket there, any scratch ticket. They give it to you. You scratch it off. You win 500 G's, Scaz. Do you tip the clerk?
I think you, for karma reasons alone, I think you have to.
I agree with you. Here's the next question. If it's 500 G's, and remember, they take out taxes. I won the lottery one time. Not like Powerball.
Humble brag right there.
No, well, I know it came out that way. So I was I was working at a hospital. I quit radio back in the day. I was working in Providence. I left radio. Program director lied to me. All sorts of stuff. So I was out. Right? Done with you. So got a healthcare billing job, and we all used to play Powerball. And the whole office you buy a bunch of Powerball tickets, quick picks, and we hit it one time, but we were the Powerball short, so we won a few $100,000. So each of us got like $5,000 or $6,000 after taxes. It was great, but we were one we were 1 digit off of the Powerball. I think it was like 34 and we had 33. I would have cleaned up more than $1 million. Anyway, taxes. They happen, right? So $500,000, I don't know how much you'd get back. Maybe $350, $400, whatever it is. How much do you tip the clerk?
Yeah, I don't know if he's getting like a caddy fee, like 10% or something like that. That might be a little much, but I think if you're getting $350, you got to throw the guy a couple grand, right? Or at least
yeah, I think
$1,500 at the minimum. Like
it's funny you bring up the 10% because I was thinking like $5,000, around five. If you win 500 G's, about $5,000, right? Is that too much?
I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's all on the guy because
it is,
but it is. So I mean, I wouldn't give him 30% or anything like that. But yeah, 5 to 10% I think is a good number.
Another question for you: if you're that clerk and you picked the winning ticket, somebody asks you to pick another ticket down the road, but you didn't get tipped. Do you pick the ticket or do you say no out of spite from the last person?
If I don't get tipped, I think I'm saying that you got to tell me which one you want, or
You're out.
You got to agree beforehand that I'm getting a piece of this.
No more. Excuse me, sir. Can you pick a ticket for me? No. Excuse me. Why not? Because the last guy didn't tip me. He walked out with $500,000. Not playing that game anymore. See, I would do it. I keep picking tickets because if I hit it again, I'm thinking the next person will give me a tip. Yeah, they like 5 G's. I think that's fair. How many people in their cars or wherever they're listening are like $100? How many of you are out there? You win 500 G's, you give the guy like $100. Give him a hunch. Here you go. Thank you for your work. The guy's like, that $100. That would be insulting if I was the clerk. $100 tip? You just won 500 G's because I picked the right ticket. $100 tip. All right, we got Alex Barth coming in studio for the next couple hours. Talk Patriots. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. It's going to be fun, and it's coming up in 90 seconds.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, the Patriots.
Into the end zone!
Touchdown
for the Patriots!
WBC FM and HD Boston 98.5, the Sports Hub, a Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox lead the Blue Jays 1-0 at Fenway. Brian Mayo getting the start tonight. He's gone through 3 innings of scoreless baseball, giving up 1 hit. Gerard Mayo met with the media earlier today, said he has made a decision on who will be the starting quarterback of the team, but would not announce it today. Instead, we found out just a little while ago there's an 8:30 a.m. press conference that was not scheduled earlier today, now scheduled for tomorrow morning. Seems like that announcement might be happening then. Also, according to Mayo, City So dodged any serious injury on Sunday night against Washington. Meanwhile, on the practice field today, Hunter Henry was back. That's good news. Busy day for the Patriots as well and the rest of the NFL. Pats released Isaiah Bolden, Tristan Hill, Michael Jordan, Jalen Reagor. That makes room for 4 claims today on the waiver wire. Those 4 claims: linebacker Curtis Jacobs, offensive tackle DeMontre Jacobs, defensive tackle Eric Johnson, and offensive tackle Zachary Thomas. Patriots also signed 7 players to their practice squad. Offensive lineman Liam Fornadell, running back Kevin Harris, running back Terrell Jennings, wide receiver Matt Landers, defensive end Jotham Russell, safety A.J. Thomas, and tight end Mitchell Wilcox. In other NFL news, Bailey Zappi signs with the Chiefs practice squad, and the Steelers, they officially named Russell Wilson as their Week 1 starting quarterback. Headlines brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Nick Cattles on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 8:30.
This is Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown turns the corner. Finger roll is up and good. Scoring the foul.
Listen to home of the Boston Celtics, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
No Joe Murray tonight. He got the fancy shift on the midday show today. Working with Facone and Zoe. He never takes Skaz with him. Skaz gets left over at night. Never take. Alex Barth in studio with us for the next couple of hours. And I'll just say this before we start talking football. I was at home today, and I was going to do a podcast at 3 o'clock, and I was getting ready for tonight's show, and I was like feeling overwhelmed because Mayo's presser just kind of ended, right? Yeah. And then we got all the news flying across Twitter about who's leaving, who's coming. I felt a little overwhelmed, but then I felt better because I said to myself, well, at least I'm not Alex Barth, because Alex is probably freaking out. And then
I feel like a lot of people probably say that to themselves often, if we're being honest.
And then we start the show tonight, and I see that now we have Gerard Mayo holding an 8:30 a.m. press conference tomorrow. And again, I said to myself, my freaking goodness. Alex Barth and his buddy Evan Lazar and all the Patriots beat writers must be having a hell of a time right now with this presser being announced.
Look, I wouldn't trade it. Let me start there.
Oh, of course not.
We go down this road and you work in 95.
Yeah,
95, wouldn't trade it.
You're not digging ditches.
But this is one of the more hectic weeks of the year, especially after you get to the end of camp, and that last week of camp, it drags, man. Because they're not really, like we talked about this, or I've talked about this a lot over the last couple weeks. They go into regular season practice mode. It's scout team. They're not really competing. There's not a ton going on. And then it's final preseason game, roster cuts, practice squad. We have a starting quarterback announced, like bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
So you go from this, very sedentary kind of, you have this routine day to day to all of a sudden it completely ramps up. And then they're off for 4 days. And then we don't see them again until Monday. So, it's an interesting time. Definitely running around a lot, putting the miles on the car, but again, wouldn't trade it. And I know there's a ton of people following along, and I appreciate that.
It's fun. It's a grind, but it's fun.
Yeah.
By the way, if you didn't get enough of Patriots Commanders on Sunday night, NFL Network is showing the game again. So if you want to enjoy offensive line play, have at it while you listen to the show.
Jacoby Brissett, he's either about to get hurt or just got hurt about to get hurt. Yeah. I think it's this play, right?
Jacoby's about to get drilled.
There it is. Oh, no.
No. Not yet. Anyway, all right, let's start with Mayo today.
Yeah.
So he did not announce the starting quarterback today, but did you feel like he did tell us who was going to start without actually telling us?
Yeah, I think so. Now, look, maybe he changed his mind, and I know there's now this mystery press conference tomorrow, but just using common sense here, right? They've been practicing like Jacoby Brissett is the starting quarterback. That is the last we saw when the practice was still open entirely to the media. Friday was the last such practice. Jacoby Brissett then starts the preseason game. Most of practice was closed to the media today, so maybe they could have switched it, but early on it looked like Jacoby Brissett was the starter. And I'll say this, even if they switched it behind closed doors, the players see what's going on.
Yeah.
And I just think I get why he didn't want to tell the players the starting quarterback today. I think that's the former player in him knowing there's a lot weighing on guys on roster cut day, even guys that made the team. If you're a bubble player, maybe your job isn't secure. He talked about today how tough it was to have to tell 4 guys who initially made the team they were getting cut off the waiver claims. Even the guys that did make it, you have friends that now are gone, and that happened so fast. I understand him not wanting to tell the team today. But if Drake Maye is going to be the starter, practice is going to look a whole heck of a lot different. And guys are going to notice.
Yeah.
And you're essentially telling the team without telling them.
Right.
If Jacoby Brissett's still the starter, it's business as usual, and you just wait a day to make the formal announcement. So I think the timing, if anything, tells us it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Now, it's possible something changed, and maybe it was Drake today, and maybe he did accelerate the timeline and tell the team today. But walking away from that press conference, I felt this way all summer. But walking away from that press conference, I felt like it was going to be Jacoby Brissett.
I agree with you. How stunned would you be if tomorrow morning at 8:30 Gerard Mayo says Drake Maye is starting week 1 at Cincinnati?
So I was thinking about this earlier because I remember in 2021 being up in the press box. It was just me and Evan Lazar. I don't know where everybody else was. And getting the notification that Cam Newton had been cut. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I probably spent 5 minutes making sure, not that I don't trust Chris Price, who I think was the first to report it, or was it Jim McBride, one of the guys from the Globe? I trust them both, but I'm looking for 5 minutes making sure it's not a fake tweet. I was floored. I couldn't write. I was so stunned. I wouldn't be that level of surprised. I don't think I would be as shocked as I was when they cut Cam Newton in 2021. It would probably be the most surprised I've been by the team since then. Of all the things they've done, of all the roster
I'd
moves,
be stunned.
the coaching moves, I think it would be the most surprising thing they've done since cutting Cam Newton, but I don't think it would be more surprising than cutting Cam Newton.
I'd be stunned. And I think, I've said this from the beginning as well. Jacoby Brissett starting makes sense to me, at least to start the year. And when you look at the schedule, you look at the offensive line having to settle things, we've all talked about it. But do you think at this point, after seeing Drake Maye through the camp, through the preseason, what he did on Sunday night against Washington, do you think starting Brissett at Cincinnati is the right call?
Yes. And it goes beyond Drake Maye. So, one, I do think there are still things Drake Maye needs to work on. I think in a bubble, he could function, but some of the things he needs to work on, he won't be able to work on with the roster that's around him.
Right.
And I also just think the injury element. We all saw that shot. I think now he's about to take it as the game's on.
No, he already took it.
He already took it. Okay.
I think this is the throw. I think this is the throw to Osborne when he puts one arm up.
Right. Yeah, comes back and says, "Yeah, my arm's fine. I'm going to overthrow this guy."
What are you doing, KJ?
Yeah.
Put both arms up.
But we saw the hit he took. That could just as easily be Drake Maye. There's no. I know he's maybe more mobile than Brissett, but short of Michael Vick, I don't know that anybody's getting avoiding the hit he took. And the last thing you can have happen, Nick, is Drake Maye get hurt and miss time.
Yeah.
Because he can still develop on the bench.
Right.
He can still continue to get better and
How
work on the
much
things
can he
needs to work
develop?
on.
That's a question I asked earlier. What interests me, Alex, is, okay, we both agree that Brissett should be starting week 1.
Yeah.
And, let's say Maye comes out there week 5, week 6, week 7, whatever it is. He's not going to be getting a ton of snaps at practice here. So when do you start to make that change? When do you start getting him more snaps at practice? Because that will be a telltale sign of the team as well.
So first off, just to finish my last point, he can develop more than he can if he's in a sling or a walking boot.
Yes, of course.
And you look at what the Colts went through with Anthony Richardson. I think there's a lot he can learn on the bench. And maybe it's not physical development. There's some mechanical stuff he can work on, but it's kind of seeing behind the scenes what an NFL game week looks like, what goes into prepping for an opponent off film at the NFL level, seeing how NFL practices work on a game week, things like that. I know that kind of sounds dumb. There is value in that. I think there's a cap on that, and there are certain things you're just going to have to get into a game and learn, and that's like the speed of the game and things like that, making in-game adjustments. But I do think he can develop on the bench. When does he hit that, tipping point? It's tough to say. There's no real... most guys hit it in week 4. Every situation's unique here.
Right.
I think giving him a month, at that point, you probably start to look at it and say, all right, he should have caught up with most of that stuff by then, and they should have caught up. They should have, is their offensive line going to be great this year? No. Is it going to be good? Probably not. But they do have to have a best 5, and then you can start building continuity, and it will improve from there. You should at least have your best 5 figured out within the first month, and you can start building continuity, and then you get maybe a little closer to realistically putting Maye in. So I look at about a month, 6 weeks. I'm a week 5 guy. I know a lot of people are at this point. I'm in that boat, but I still think it's best for Drake Maye, and it's best for the team if Jacoby Brissett starts week 1.
It's really interesting. You wonder if this plan would have been different if the bye week was earlier in the season.
Absolutely.
The fact that the bye week is in December, it's like you're not waiting until week 14 or whatever to make this change. And now maybe you kind of treat it like a half a season before, the bye week, right? Yeah. So if your bye week is week 14, you get in there week 5, you get 8 or 9 weeks to work on something. Then you get the halfway point of your season if you're Drake. You have that week off to kind of work on things and reset things, and then you finish the year strong. Let me ask you this.
So I'll just on that point.
Sure.
The thing they do have is the mini bye, which is probably earlier than they want, and that's the Thursday night football week.
But then you got to go to San Francisco, and oof.
I've said this. I that is the one game I would rather his first start be week 1 than be week 4. That is the one game I would not do. But what you do have the opportunity for there is you have extra time. You can get him more reps that week.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's a blowout in San Francisco, you even get him his first taste of game action late in that game. And then that leads perfectly into week 5. So they do have that at their disposal. That does line up a little better. The bye week entirely too late to base it on that, which, by the way, was the same thing with Mac Jones. And they had a late Thursday night game that year, too. The mini bye does kind of work for them, though.
Do you think that Mayo and Alex Van Pelt agreed on who should start week 1 when they met? Or do you think Mayo was starting to lean towards Drake Maye and that's why he came out earlier this week saying, oh, he outplayed Brissett up to this point. Do you think he was starting to hedge a little bit there?
So there was a really interesting quote from Gerard Mayo, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, where he talked about, saying Van Pelt was the expert on the finer points of quarterback play.
Yep.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I wonder, the way I would set it up, if I was at the top, and this is just me, Gerard Mayo should have final say over who's on the field and who's not at the end of the day. He's the head coach. That's the crux of his job. You can't take that away from him. But he's not a quarterback expert. I would set it up where Alex Van Pelt's job is to give the green light on when Drake Maye is ready. And then Gerard Mayo takes it from there. When is it right to put him in? And take the pulse of the team. Now, it's not necessarily that simple. Maybe Mayo goes to Van Pelt and says, I want him now. Van Pelt says he's not ready. Then what does Mayo do?
Yeah.
Does he pull rank or not? And I think, for better or worse, he should have the ability to do that. But to me, it's when does Alex Van Pelt give the green light? And that's where that could come down to. So, are they in the exact same spot? I don't know. I'm sure Mayo would probably like the young upstart quarterback sooner rather than later. But, he admitted he's not a quarterback expert. I do think there's an understanding of deference to Van Pelt in his area of expertise.
I agree. I said earlier in the show to start off that, to me, this whole conversation about who should pick the quarterback and who should decide who starts, to me, it's mostly semantics. I don't think Gerard Mayo would go against Alex Van Pelt's word. I honestly, I think whoever Van Pelt says should start week 1, I think Mayo goes with it. And it doesn't mean that Mayo's a puppet. I think Mayo is just going to lean on the experienced guy and the guy who played the position and knows the nuance of it and says, okay, well, if Alex says that, then I'm going to lean towards that and we'll go with that, because at the end of the day, I could always change anyway. It's week 1. If it doesn't work out, or I want to quickly, pivot to Drake Maye, that's what we'll do. But I think he will be deferential to Van Pelt, and I think what Van Pelt says pretty much goes. He'll make the announcement. Mayo will make the announcement, but this really is Van Pelt's decision.
Which is great in theory. And again, I support this. I want the green light from Van Pelt before I make the change if I'm Gerard Mayo. What happens if it takes too long? What happens if it's week 8, week 9? Van Pelt's still not seeing what he wants to see.
Yeah.
But the team maybe only has 1 or 2 wins. People are calling for Mayo, wondering if he's the right hire. He's hearing that noise. It's a lot harder to listen to Van Pelt then than it is now. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to that point. And it shouldn't get to that point.
Yeah.
It's great. And this is that word, collaboration, because what we're essentially saying is collaborative. Mayo makes the change when Van Pelt gives him the thumbs up, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he, as a former player, reads the locker room and says, it's not time. And it could go the other way. Maybe they win a couple games. Or they have a couple competitive games. The locker room's feeling Jacoby Brissett. Alex Van Pelt says, hey, the kid's ready to go. And maybe Gerard Mayo says, you know what? We have a good thing going right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that just yet.
Yep.
And Van Pelt looks at it and says, well, I want to be able to run my offense. I need the kid to run my offense. Like, that can go both ways. So that's the danger in this. I would feel more comfortable, though, and we probably won't know this externally, but in theory, I would be more comfortable knowing Van Pelt gave the green light when they make the decision to put Maye in.
I agree.
Instead of it purely being Mayo's decision, given that, look, he's not, he played linebacker and then he was linebackers coach. Nobody should expect him to be a expert on quarterback mechanics and quarterback play, but he should recognize that. And I think he does recognize that. And that's why you have assistant coaches. Go to the experts and let the experts help you and inform on your decision.
617-779-0985. You have any questions about the Patriots, feel free to give us a call. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Alex Barth with me alongside the next 2 hours up until 10 o'clock. So lots of time to talk Patriots. 617-779-0985. We'll get to your phone calls. Also, is Alex freaking out about the O-line? He'll answer that question for you coming up next.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray.
Seattle's in for Murray. Alex Barth riding shotgun up until 10 o'clock talking Patriots. Quick Celtics news, though. Barth does it all. Patriot stuff, and then he breaks the news to me during the break.
I covered the Celtics for us during the run. I was there writing.
Look at you. So break the news to everybody.
The Celtics have signed guard Lonnie Walker, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, a one-year deal. Walker averaged 9.7 points, shot 38% from 3 in 58 games for Brooklyn last season. So basically, O'Shea Brissett was the one guy who hadn't re-signed, takes his spot as kind of a depth scorer. I know Woj said guard. I think he plays a little on the wing too, right? So
Lonnie Walker's legit.
Yeah,
he's a very solid bench player.
I love this move.
It feels like, at the very least, an upgrade over O'Shea Brissett. I was surprised he was still. And I have to. We've been talking about O'Shane Zimenez so much, and obviously Jacoby Brissett. If I pronounce the name wrong, obviously wires getting crossed. But that seems like I was surprised he was unsigned. That's a big upgrade for them. I don't know how much he'll play, but however much he does, it's a big upgrade.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm not telling you this is the difference between them repeating or not repeating, but they had a 15th spot open. This is a legitimate NBA player who can fill it up. He can shoot. And, if you need some instant offense off the bench, if you need some offensive punch, and we know that they're going to, I think, manage minutes differently this year, and they're going to have some load management, I believe. And you got Holiday, who's 34. Porzingis has got the injury. I think you want to manage Tatum and Brown after the long summer they had, especially Tatum going to the Olympics, even though he didn't play as much as he should have. I love this move. He's a guy who can legitimately give you 20 if you need 20. So I love it. Brad Stevens is so good at his job. He is so freaking good at his job. It's ridiculous.
Why was he unsigned? Was he I don't think he was coming off an injury, right? That's the one thing. It's almost like it's too good to be true. What's the catch?
I just think, he's not the greatest defender in the world. And, maybe he had an opportunity with another team and he said no because the team stunk. I don't know. But, he played 58 games last year. He played 56 for the Lakers the year before. Guy averaged 12 points for the Lakers in 23 minutes. Last year, he scored 10 points a game in 17 minutes. And career shooter around 35%, 35.6% from three. And that's because he had one bad year. His last year with the Spurs, he shot 31% from three. Other than that, he hasn't shot worse than 35.5%. And as you said, Alex, last year, he shot over 38% from three. So this is a legitimate dude who can score. I love it. He's 25 years old, too.
Interesting, too. Bobby Manning from CLNS says they had some interest in Walker last year at the deadline, so following through.
I wanted them to trade for him at the deadline last year. I told you that during the break. So, yeah, I love it. Again, 15th guy, I get it. He's not going to sit there and, be a true difference maker because his team is already so damn good and loaded. But just adding more talent and a legitimate score, Brad Stevens does it again, baby. The guy is a wizard. He's a freaking wizard. All right, back to football with Barth. Before we get to the offensive line, was this ever truly a quarterback competition? Because I don't think it was.
No. I think a lot of the competition in that is like coach speak. And this is where...
Agreed.
I think some people got confused last year with Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. Remember when Bill said, everybody's competing and people lost their minds? For football coaches, the word competing is basically... a synonym for participating.
Yeah.
Right. If you're out there, you're competing. And in that sense, I guess it was a competition, but, a true quarterback competition, a true position battle, there's parameters for that. When you see it, it's both guys getting equal opportunities or close to equal opportunities, going back and forth, and that just, it would be weird if they gave Drake Maye the job. Part of that, too, is Drake Maye hasn't repped with any of these starters, really. He did it briefly in games, but he's not going to have the chemistry. Now, that hasn't stopped teams before. This was a big thing Mac Jones' rookie year. The first month, he was like, I haven't thrown at any of these receivers. His favorite receiver in training camp that year was Trey Nixon. And he had to build chemistry with this whole new group. So it's not unheard of, but if you really thought Drake Maye was going to have a shot to win the job, you would have let him play with the guys he was going to be playing with if he won it. So, no, this was not by definition, a quarterback competition.
Totally agree with you. All right, let's jump to the offensive line. And by the way, if nobody believes me about my Lonnie Walker thing, I just searched it. I literally tweeted a month ago, July 29th, would not hate the Celtics taking a swing at Lonnie Walker. Thank you, Brad. Thanks for following. Thanks for following me on Twitter, buddy. Let's get to this offensive line, though. What's your concern meter? Let's do a 0 to 10 concern meter for Alex Barth. Where you at?
Like 8.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, especially when you factor in some of the guys that are hurt, and it doesn't sound like anything serious, but they're still banged up. And once you get into the season, sometimes, you're hurt, and that's just what it is till the end. You don't have time for things to heal properly. I like the interior. I do. I'm still as worried about the tackle position as I was when camp started. I wish they'd given Caden Wallace more opportunities. I think there's something there.
Yep.
I just, at left tackle, Vidarian Lowe is what he is. Chuksa Kofor's looked fine at right tackle, but that was a worrying performance Sunday night.
Yeah.
And if Vidarian Lowe's banged up, he's probably going to play left. And I don't need to see him again at left tackle after that game. I saw what I needed to see.
I still think they got options. And I'm not sitting here telling you that they're going to be able to figure it all out. It could be a disaster. I was as infuriated. I lost my mind on Sunday night as many of you with the penalties and the sloppiness, and did a podcast on Monday freaking out about it. But then I read your buddy Evan, and I listened to Greg Bedard, two guys who watch a lot of offensive line film and love breaking down the offensive line, and both of them agreed that the line, aside from the penalties, which, as Evan said, it's like asking, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Right.
But other than the penalties, but you do feel like you can clean that up. You should be able to clean that stuff up.
So
but other than that, they played okay.
Here's part of the reason I'm worried about that, though. The West Coast Shanahan tree. Kyle Shanahan, LaFleur, McVay. You can sort of throw Andy Reid into this. That coaches from that philosophical tree.
Yeah.
Generally, those teams are not great about the operational stuff. The Dolphins, you can put into this, whether it's getting plays in on time, lining up correctly, penalties, things like that, clock management. That coaches from that tree are generally more worried about just designing cool plays and being explosive than the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Van Pelt comes from that tree. Now, as a former player, I kind of hope he's a little more buttoned up on some of that stuff. And look, he's not the head coach. A lot of those guys I just named are head coaches. Gerard Mayo, defensive player, defensive coach, played for Bill Belichick. If it gets out of hand, I'd hope he'd go to Van Pelt and be like, hey, you need to figure this out.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
And hopefully that happened after the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
But with these West Coast coaches, a lot of them look at that stuff and kind of call it the price of doing business. And they maybe don't worry about it as much. And if you're the Chiefs, or you're the Dolphins, or you're the Niners, and you have that level of talent, you can maybe get away with it. I would argue the Niners flirt with it more than they should, and that's a big part of the reason Kyle Shanahan still hasn't gotten over the hump. The Dolphins lost the playoff game 2 years ago because Mike McDaniel, time and time again, couldn't get a play call in because his nose was too deep in his play sheet, and he couldn't see the play clock.
Yep.
Hope the Patriots don't have that margin of error. They don't have Tyreek Hill.
No.
They don't have Travis Kelce.
Not close.
Right? That's part of the reason I'm worried. Not because that stuff can't be cleaned up. But this is an offensive philosophy that historically, cleaning those kind of things up for other coaches, Van Pelt's a little different. He's more of an unknown. For other coaches from that tree, cleaning those things up hasn't been as much of a priority as it probably needs to be for the Patriots, and this is going to be a big test for Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
Can he cross that line and say, again, he's talked about Van Pelt as the head coach of the offense and the offensive expert and all of that. At a certain point, though, it reflects on Mayo, and can he cross that line and say, this is unacceptable, I don't care, this needs to be cleaned up, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, his post-game press conference on Sunday night gave me hope that he would do that, because it was the first time where he looked really and sounded really freaking frustrated at the operation. So maybe he's reached his boiling point. After the Eagles joint practice, I was around a 5 with my concern meter, because I said, look, it was the first time they looked that bad, and it's against a tough defensive line and all that stuff. I would say my concern meter is probably at about, 6.5, a 7 right now. I still think, Robinson, I know he had a rough night the other night, but he's been pretty damn good at camp. I agree with you on Wallace. I think they got some options. You could slide a Wenu to right tackle if need be. So I'm not totally out on them just yet, but my patience is wearing a little bit more thin. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. He's Alex Barth. I'm Nick Cattles in for Joe Murray. Continue the conversation on the Patriots. Take your phone calls at 617-779-0985. Aside from those phone calls, we'll talk about the post-cut wide receiver room. It's coming up.
Sports Hub headlines.
Celtics news breaking just a little while ago. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting the Celtics have agreed to a one-year deal with Lonnie Walker. Walker averaged 9 points. So step away from the golf clubs during the break.
Back.
Big Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Wednesday night. What's happening? Thank you for joining us. Alex Barth with me in studio up until 10 o'clock. Skaz on the ones and twos. I thought I was excited about Lonnie Walker signing with the Celtics until Skaz came in during the break, was like, read an article. Is that okay, Alex? Alex was like, yeah, sure. Kind of busy doing this for the next couple hours. So Skaz, he couldn't wait to get those fingers on that keyboard, baby. Lonnie Walker City.
Content creators. That's right.
And that's what you do. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. All right, let's talk about the wide receivers, Alex. Let's start with Jalen Reagor. He was cut today. Were you surprised?
A little bit, just because I thought, as a kick returner, he'd stick around. We'll see if he comes back on the practice squad tomorrow.
Yeah.
That would be a possibility, and then he can be elevated. Ultimately not, just because they had 7 receivers. That was never realistic. Kayshon Boutte was probably a better wide receiver than him over the course of the summer. Again, I thought kick returning tipped the scale, but it was clear one of those two guys they were going to move on from pretty quickly.
I think this is just another example of us having to move away from the Bellichick way a little bit, because I thought like you, kick return, practice, if he can help with the special teams, maybe you try to get Boutte to the practice squad because that special teams brings extra added value. But I don't think that Elliott Wolf quite looks at a football team the same as Belichick. I think there are obvious similarities, but they're not going to sit there and just say, hey, we're going to keep this guy on the roster because he can return kicks. I think those days they might have moved on from. So
there's one other factor here, though, Nick.
What's that?
Is Kayshon Boutte's in the second year of a 4-year rookie deal. Jalen Reagor was signed a 1-year contract. If you cut Kayshon Boutte and bring him back on the practice squad, you essentially burn his rookie deal.
That's fair.
And Jalen Reagor, it was a 1-year deal anyway. So if they always planned on bringing one back, it actually does make sense that it's Reagor. And I just don't think, they should be able to get Reagor back. I don't think he's going to get claimed or signed off the practice squad in the near future. But that's assuming he's willing to come back. You always take the risk, and I'm sure they discussed with him beforehand, but it's, he may look at it and say, you don't want me? No, I'll go elsewhere. If there is interest in him elsewhere, which I think there will be because of his kick return ability. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's back on the practice squad.
That's fair. You just wonder if the prior regime would have cared about Boutte's contract or just said, look, we're just going to cut the cord and keep the guy who brings a little bit more value to us. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Because obviously Bill is no longer here as badly as Mike Lombardi wished he was. So we look at this depth chart now, the wide receiver room. Obviously a very young room. I mean, Jalen Polk, Baker, both rookies. You've got Pop and Boutte, second-year guys. Thornton, a third-year guy. And then Osborne's the vet. Obviously Kendrick Bourne on the pup to start the year, which is not surprising. Your thoughts on the overall group, how it kind of slots?
So, they have a lot of good complementary players, which is where they've been the last few years. Now, I still think it's an upgrade over last year.
Yep.
Because the complementary players they had were Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, guys on the downswing. Now that's Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Pop Douglas, guys on the upswing. So they're getting better instead of getting older. They still don't have anybody that dictates coverage. And the reality is you're not going to be able to maximize a guy like Pop Douglas or a guy like KJ Osborne or a guy like Jalen Polk. And I think those are their 3 best receivers until you have a guy that dictates coverage and forces teams to cover those guys one-on-one for 60 minutes. I think they want Tyquan Thornton to be that guy. I'm not totally buying in on that, not just because of the ability.
You see Lazar today? Of course you did. Tweeting?
Yeah,
Evan's all in now, baby.
He's been all in. He's been all in for 3 years.
Creed arms wide open today with the videos of the preseason. All he's done is get open.
Evan just wants one little something to buy in on Tyquan Thornton, and he will. I knew this was coming. But look, it's not even an ability thing. It's an availability thing. If you believe your offense is predicated on Tyquan Thornton being on the field, that scares me.
Yeah.
Because the guy doesn't stay on the field.
I agree.
Simple.
I'm not buying it until I see him do something consistently on the NFL level on a field where games count.
Right. I guess I see the vision. I see the thought process.
Yeah, you love the idea of Thornton.
Right. This guy's got this tremendous speed. We got a big arm quarterback. He's going to stretch the field. Teams are going to have to play too high. They're going to have to go cover 2, cover 3, light in the box.
Yep.
It's going to leave opportunities open underneath for guys like Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk.
Right.
I get that. until week 3 when Tyquan Thornton pulls a hammy, they don't have anybody else that can garner that kind of attention. Even in theory, like with Thornton, we're talking about this in theory. If he can't separate, teams are going to just put their fastest corner out there, cover him one-on-one, and not worry about the help over the top. So I can see what they're going for. And will it work in spots? Sure. There are going to be teams that just don't have a fast enough corner.
Yeah.
And if Tyquan Thornton's healthy, they're going to have to play him, 2 high or 3 high. That's going to happen. But will it happen consistently enough? I don't know. I still think they need a true coverage dictating wide receiver. That's why they were ready to give Brandon Ayuk $30-something million a year. Like, they know it's not
right.
enough.
Couple things. I hope that getting Rager off the team does not result in Pop Douglas returning punts, because if it does, I'm going to go crazy.
So what I think they might do there, and I like this, first quarter, you get a 3-and-out. No, it'll be whoever, Marcus Jones or, I think Kyle Duggar experiments with that a little bit in the spring, guys like that. Maybe JaMychal Hasty gets a shot. Fourth quarter, minute and a half to go, you're getting the ball back in a tie game.
You going
Pop Douglas. I think they're going to use him. And other
I don't
teams
want
have
him
done
back
this.
there, Alex. I don't want him back there.
You know what? If the Steelers can do it with prime Antonio Brown, the Patriots can do it with Pop Douglas.
Sorry,
That's
just
the reality of it.
watching the NFL Network and Drake May's cleat goes flying off.
Right. His lineman stepped on his foot.
But one more thing, though. I want to get to the receivers.
Yeah.
One more thing. I'm officially on the play Jalen Polk over KJ Osborne bandwagon. Are you with me on this?
Play him a good amount. I mean, I'm fine if they rotate them. I think there's something to be said for experience, especially when you do make the switch to Drake Maye and having a veteran receiver on the field for a young quarterback.
Give me Polk.
He needs to play a good amount. He's they're one of their best receivers. He's their best immediate rookie, meaning like we don't think Drake Maye is going to play right away. I'm fine having them kind of rotate. And then the other thing is what happens when Bourne comes back. I kind of wish they'd try Polk more at the X. And I know why they're not, but I kind of wish they would, because
you got to think Booty's gone, right?
Booty's probably gone. But
with Bourne back.
Once Bourne's back, Bourne needs to play.
Unless, hey, maybe like you said, though, Tyquan pops a hammy and then it's solved.
Bourne is far and away their best receiver.
Yes.
I want the best receiver on the field with Drake Maye. Even if he plays the same position as Jalen Polk, so be it. I don't care. Kendrick Bourne needs to be on the field. I'm not doing 2022 again. I'm not doing Doghouse Kendrick Bourne again. He needs to be on the field. He needs to play.
No. That was Matt Patricia garbage. By the way, Alex Zioli on Twitter, at Nick C Radio, at Real Alex Barth. If they can get Jalen Rager back on the practice squad, they can game day elevate him, so he can still return kicks and punts. Plus, they have Marcus Jones. Yeah, I don't want Marcus Jones back there. I don't want Pop Douglas back there. They both have injury histories. They're not big guys. I don't want them taking extra hits. Find somebody who can return punts. And we're having the conversation because, of course, yes, if Rager gets to the practice squad, it's a different conversation. But as of right now, as I said, if they're moving on, from Rager and he's not coming back, I hope it's not, Pop.
Again, the one thing I'd say I agree with you for the most part. If it's game on the line, I think you got to let your best players go win you the game. Look at the Jets game 2 years ago. Or was that last year? 2 years ago, where Marcus Jones houses the punt at the final whistle. If you're just going to keep those guys on ice, there's no point in having them. And that's a chance where a tremendous playmaker can go win you a game. I wouldn't be too afraid to put him out there then. I don't need to see it in the first quarter. I don't need to see it in blowouts. If the game's on the line, I want Pop Douglas or Marcus Jones out there. I do. Football players can get hurt. That's the risk. I think at a certain point, you have to live with it and let playmakers make plays.
Yeah, but if you can protect one of your better players, then you protect them. That's what I think. And Pop is critical to this football team. We saw it at camp. Just a different offense with him out there. He helps so much to risk his capability. Same thing with Marcus Jones. Third corner, Marco Wilson might be able to do the job. Alex Austin might be able to do the job, but I think those two guys are important. They're talented. Let them do what they do. I don't want them punt returning. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. He's Alex Barth. In or out next.
What's it gonna be, McFly? Are you in or out?
Bertrand gets you through the midday, Joe Murray gets you right through the night.
I actually spoke with women today.
On the Sports Hub.
Are you in or out? Gotta know without a doubt. I'm the one you need for a dirty deed. I'm the best. Success is guaranteed.
The Amazon Fire app, like for some reason, just when I pull up like music genres, it's like independent rock, alternative rock, and they all have Incubus with what's his name's face all over it. I don't know why. I mean, I like Incubus, but it's not like I know that's Fred Toucher would be like, what? I get it, but I do. But I don't know why my YouTube is just infatuated with it. All right, in or out? Cattle's in for Murray. Alex Barth in studio. Red Sox about to blow a chance to add some insurance runs at Fenway in the bottom of the seventh. Skaz, take it away.
All right, gentlemen. Wednesday night edition of In or Out. We're gonna be football heavy tonight. I know my audience, so we're gonna lean football. We'll start with this. Scott Hansen earlier this week on WFAN announced that the NFL will have 3+ games in the late window going forward, primarily because of NFL Red Zone. So no more 2-game 4 o'clock, 4:25 slates. Are you guys in or out?
I could not be more in than I am on this idea. I hate weekends. Like, I own part of a bar down in Virginia Beach still with my buddy, and we'd have NFL Sundays and pack the house and DirecTV and all that. And 85-90% of the place empty by 4 o'clock because you have like 10 games at the 1 window and 2 at the 4 window. So they should be splitting these windows up a little bit more evenly. So it's about time the NFL did this.
Out, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, my God, he's the worst.
3 games isn't enough. I think it's got to be 4.
You got to start somewhere, Barth.
Quad box. 4 games. But this
baby steps, man.
This
baby
goes
steps.
part of a larger problem. Now they have the Friday games, and you got Wednesday during December and Saturdays.
Easy, Felger.
Don't water down the product. I want the majority of my games Sunday, 1 or 4.
You're too young to be this crabby about this. A little crabby.
It's not. It's not like I'm not complaining about having to watch football more days. I'm still watching football those other days.
Kind of sounds like you might be complaining.
I'll just put on the college game. But I don't. The great thing about Red Zone is like it's all there, and now you have all these games and all these different windows. It's hard to watch. Also, by the way, they need preseason Red Zone. It's about time.
Oh, here's a great thing too that I'm thinking about this. I don't have YouTube the ticket this year. I might change now though. But the idea, you could have those multi-view options now. And hey, good job by YouTube because now you can pick the actual games that are multi-view.
Okay, so that was the thing last year. They preset the quad boxes, right?
God, yes. And I'm like, why 2 out of the 4 games stink? Let me pick the games.
Did they only change that for the NFL or did they change it for college football?
I don't know. I saw the NFL story. I'm not sure about the college football.
So I know college last year, there would be like, this was a big thing on college football Twitter where people would try to guess, like, why these 4 games? What do they all have in common? Because there were some random combinations.
Drove me insane. But now if you have 3 games at least in the 4 o'clock window, now you can have 1 game on Fox or whatever, right? 1 TV on Fox, multi-TV it, and then have a couple of other games up on the multi-view. So that's good. All right, Skaz, what's next?
All right, sticking with the NFL theme, Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick have a new show coming out together on ESPN Plus called The Breakdown, where they will look ahead at a matchup, often ESPN's Monday Night Football matchup. Gentlemen, are we in or out on The Breakdown with Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick?
In. 2 great football minds, talking X's and O's. What's not to like?
I guess I'm in, but I will say this. Belichick's starting to become like Snoop Dogg. Like, there's just too much. Well, I love Bill. I love his football mind. But do we need Bill doing 10 different things during football season? Because it feels like we're heading towards that way. What's it now, 6? Does he have now 6 jobs? They just announced that he's going to do the Jim Gray show. Then today now he's doing this with Manning. I mean, when's enough Belichick enough Belichick?
Here's my approach to personality like Bill, though, starting to do media. We were going to see him a ton no matter what. It would either be a lot at one job or a little bit for a lot of jobs. Like, I think we were always going to be this oversaturated with him. It's just, is he doing one show or a bunch of shows?
I will say it also just shows how much the dude loves football, because it's like he has a chance to get away from football for a year. And, you could pay attention, own a couple fantasy teams, Bill, or whatever, keep your eye on the game. But no, he's like, I will do 25 football programs. I will talk about football every day of the week. If you want to pay me, I'll do it. That's how much he loves football still. And that's why it was ridiculous to think that he was just going to walk away. He loves football too much.
All right. We will move. We're going to stick with the NFL. Why not? This actually came across during the show. The New York Giants announced that, I'll read it right from their tweet. With permission from the family of Giants legend Ray Flaherty, Malik Neighbors will wear number 1. Ray Flaherty's number was the first number to be retired in pro football history. Are we in or out on unretiring numbers?
Out. Once you retire the number's retired. You retired it for a reason. You should honor that. You don't go back on it. That's ridiculous. Sorry, we're going to take it back. Now you get that's outrageous. The Giants are a joke for doing that. And the fact that it has historical relevance like it does, it makes it even worse.
Out, but this isn't the most egregious example of a team unretiring a number. So this happened like 5 times in the NFL. I was looking this up earlier. Here's some of the guys that teams have not unretired numbers for, but they usually do he asked the permission of the family. You had J.J. Watt in Arizona, all-time great player, right? So that's fine. I have no problem with that. You have Peyton Manning in Denver, all-time great player, no problem with that. Jerry Rice in Seattle, perfectly fine.
How many people remembered that Jerry Rice played for Seattle?
True. But Jerry Rice is the kind of guy you unretire a number for. Now, this one's a little weird. It's a rookie. I don't love that. It's still better than, in 2006, the San Francisco 49ers briefly unretired number 12 for Trent Dilfer. So here's your list. Peyton Manning, JJ, and we'll say Peyton Manning, JJ Watt, Jerry Rice, Trent Dilfer.
One of the great football players of our time, Alex.
One of these things is not like the other. And Rome Odunze, you could say this was a first-round pick. This was like old-ass Trent Dilfer. This was the end of his career.
They unretired a number for Trent Dilfer.
For Trent Dilfer. Jerry Rice, fine. Peyton Manning, fine. J.J. Watt, sure. Especially when you're the Cardinals and you don't really have that kind of history. Trent Dilfer as the San Francisco 49ers. Now, apparently he was friends with the guy, John Brody, whose number they unretired. Honor your friend. Wear a different number. I don't know why that got me so upset today, but it did.
It should. Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, no franchise should be unretiring a number for Trent Dilfer.
That's out of pocket. That's out of pocket.
All right, gentlemen, we'll wrap it up with this one. Today, Netflix announced a new Netflix sports series. It is called Starting 5. It followed the 23-24 seasons for Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis, and one Jason Tatum. Are we in or out on the Netflix sports series Starting 5?
In. I mean, it'll probably be good. So there were 2 simultaneous documentaries for the Celtics last year.
Yep.
Because it was HBO's the other one, right?
A lot of Tatum behind-the-scenes action coming our way.
I am admittedly high on Netflix sports documentaries right now because I watched the Connor Stallions doc last night.
I saw people panning that. It didn't really add too much information.
So, here's the thing. They didn't necessarily tell the story of the scandal. It's more the story of Connor Stallions, the person.
Yeah.
If you just wanted to hear about Michigan cheating, it's not for you. Connor Stallions, fascinating individual. Brilliant guy. And I enjoyed learning his story. Yes.
So brilliant, he had that crap-ass disguise on a sideline during a football game.
Go watch it. Fascinating.
Like Bobby Valentine with
fascinating
the
stuff.
Fake mustache.
Again, did they gloss over? There were times where, they kind of talked about the things he was doing legally, and they'd get right up to the parts about the cheating and be like, oh, and this also may or may not have happened, and then quickly go back to Stallions. It wasn't quite as self-serving. Did you watch the Florida Gators Urban Meyer one?
I did not, no.
So that was a total tongue back.
Yeah.
That was... There was no mention of anything.
By the way, does he get paid for that? Do we know if he gets paid by Netflix?
Myers.
Connor Stallions?
He might have.
The best thing about Connor Stallions is his name.
They talk about that. His whole family was in it. He was definitely the driving force behind it. they catered it to him. My guess is that's how they got him to do it. But I enjoyed learning about the kid. Like, the scandal aside, I'm sure there'll be another documentary about that down the road that's more about that. Fascinating individual.
I'm in on this. I love behind-the-scenes documentary stuff. I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff.
Can I just give you my one gripe with it?
Sure.
It said it comes out in early October. Like, the season's going to be starting. I know these things take time, but give it to us when there's not actual basketball going on.
They want you to binge watch, right? Binge watch. By the way, Brian Mayo is dealing. We'll have details on that. Thanks to Skaz, in or out. Fantastic stuff. We'll have your Brian Mayo update, who's dealing at Fenway. And then once we're done with the headlines, back, no commercials. Cattle's in for Murray. Alex Barth with me for another hour. We'll get into Gerard Mayo and all things Patriots.
WBZ-FM and HD Boston.
Patriots!
It's an all-new season for the Patriots.
Wow.
You'll hear it all right here.
Yes.
Your home of the past. 98.5, the Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group Station. Sports Hub headlines.
My goodness, Brian Mayo decided to deal tonight at Fenway. Looks like his night is most likely over. But man, oh man, Brian Mayo, 8 innings, 2 hits, no runs given up. Just a tremendous start. 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. Looks like he ends his night with a strikeout. So just a fantastic game from Brian Mayo. The Red Sox lead 1-0 going to the bottom of the 8th. Celtics. We got Celtics news tonight. Agreed to a 1-year deal with Lonnie Walker. Walker averaged 9.7 points a game for the Nets last year. It's an Exhibit 10 deal that allows the Celtics to give a bonus to Walker if he is waived after training camp and plays for the team's G League affiliate in Maine. Gerard Mayo met with the media today, says that the team has made a decision on who will be the starting quarterback. He did not announce who that was today, but Mayo has a press conference tomorrow morning set for 8:30. Alex Barth will be there nice and early.
Yes, I will.
Make sure you bring the coffee. I will not be there.
985thesportshub.com.
There you go. Also, according to Mayo, City So dodged any serious injury on Sunday night. That's good news. More good news, Hunter Henry was on the practice field today. Meanwhile, busy day for the Patriots, rest of the NFL. Pats released Isaiah Bolden, Tristan Hill, Michael Jordan, Jalen Reagor. They claimed linebacker Curtis Jacobs, tackle DeMontre Jacobs, defensive tackle Eric Johnson, and offensive tackle Zachary Thomas. Patriots also signed 7 guys to their practice squad, including running backs Kevin Harris, Terrell Jennings, offensive lineman Liam Fornadell, Matt Landers, wide receiver, defensive end Jotham Russell, safety A.J. Thomas, and tight end Mitchell Wilcox. In other news, Bailey Zappi signs with the Chiefs. He'll be on their practice squad, and Russell Wilson will start the season as the Steelers' QB1. Apologies to Mark Bertrand, who hates QB1. Headlines brought to you by Awaken 180. This September, make losing weight part of your new routine. Energy, clarity, better health. Find it all at awaken180weightloss.com. I'm Nick Cattles on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 9:30.
Here we go.
Boom. I win. Kaboom. Yeah.
It's a buddy. We've got a passion for Boston sports. Get angry. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
I remember years ago, Skaz, Alex, years ago, I used to work on this night show. My buddy Adam used to do the good old Dong Report. 2-run home run by Tyler O'Neill just a moment ago. Red Sox lead 3-0, so hopefully that means Brian Mayo gets a win. Because worst nightmare is when a guy pitches as well as Mayo does, but it's a 1-run lead, he leaves the game, bullpen chokes it.
And they can't afford to be wasting starts like this.
No, not at all. Jared Carabas tonight with Maz. He's not quitting on the Sox. I felt like they're dead. I came into the studio and I said, they're dead. And I just wanted to really pick on Maz and go after Jared a little bit. But Maz too. Maz said it's not over yet. So Maz being a little optimistic. But Mayo was fantastic tonight. Alex Barth with me for another 53 minutes, to be exact, up until 10 o'clock. Gaddle's in for Murray, Skaz, manning the position behind the glass on the ones and twos. Back to Patriots talk. So, how much confidence, Alex, do you have in this Patriots regime to get this quarterback decision correct? When to play Maye, pull the trigger on him, when to sit Brissett. How much confidence?
Look, I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I have confidence until they give me reason not to. I would say the one thing I've seen, and I haven't seen a ton of indication one way or the other, Van Pelt didn't really have to work with a rookie quarterback in Cleveland, at least not like this. The one thing I will say is Drake Maye and Joe Milton both, their mechanics night and day improved from where they were in college. And that doesn't mean they don't still have room to improve, but
yeah,
tremendous growth through these first 5 months on the Patriots, right? Going back to the draft in April.
Yep.
They're off to the right start. Some might say that's the easy part, is the mechanics, the physical side. Now you got to deal with the mental side. But to this point, I think they've done everything correctly. So I'm encouraged until they give me reason to be discouraged. Now, that could all change tomorrow. If Drake Maye's starting week 1, I'm going to be really nervous. But so far...
You're going to tweet through it?
Yeah. So far, minus some minor things here and there.
Yeah.
I think they've done just about everything right. The one big issue I have is they didn't properly invest in the offensive line. But again, if Drake Maye doesn't start right away, you get that figured out. You go out next offseason, you make a real investment in the tackle position. Like, it's a multi-year thing. I get that.
Let me ask you this. I'm somewhat interested in the idea that you waive Zappy, and I'm not a Zappy guy, but you let Zappy go. And so now you don't have any veteran quarterback insurance.
I would not be surprised if it doesn't stay that way.
So if they go out and get like a Ryan Tannehill or somebody...
Not even that. Like last year, they went through Matt Corral, Will Greer, Nathan Rourke.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about somebody that you could plug and play. I don't think you're going to plug and play any of those guys. And the only time this would become a thing, because you and I think, are on the same page where you don't start Maye week 1. You wait at least a month and a half, and then if he's ready, you get your offensive line settled, throw him out there. But if Brissett gets hurt, and I'm not wishing injury on anybody, obviously. I hope Jacoby stays healthy.
Yeah.
But you have to plan for these things. If Brissett gets hurt in the first quarter against Cincinnati, Drake Maye's going in.
So you're talking about finding the buffer quarterback, which again, maybe
I would have tried to sneak Milton to the practice squad. And I know you lose the contractual rights and all of that, but I like the idea of if you're telling me that Brissett is starting because he's the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
I wanted 2 sacrificial lambs. Because if Brissett gets hurt early, now you're throwing Maye out there and you haven't figured anything out about your football team.
That's the guy I think you have on the practice squad. Because if Brissett gets hurt, I'm comfortable with Maye finishing the game because you're probably just going to run the ball and play it safe. And then if it's multiple weeks. So I look at the cuts yesterday. Like a guy like C.J. Beathard, and I know these names won't excite anybody, but or C.J. Beathard I think went on IR. But a guy like Desmond Ridder, who has started games in this league.
He signed with somebody today. He might have.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they Cardinals re-signed him.
They did? On
practice squad. So you can still go get him, but you're not going to put him on the practice squad.
Right. But just finding somebody who started games in this league or been in this league and been around, Nathan Peterman, if he hasn't re-signed. I think Mike White did sign with the Bills. Somebody like that. Even Will Greer. You can have the buffer quarterback on the practice squad. I don't have a problem with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they had another veteran somewhere somehow. The reality is, if it is a buffer quarterback, he's here to be a buffer. You're not counting on that guy to be overly competitive. You're just counting on him to get you through games. And that is essentially what Will Greer and Nathan Rourke and those guys were.
How about this? What if they try to sneak Milton onto the practice squad? I think he would have made it. I think he would have made it to the practice squad. You keep Zappy on the roster. And then when you are ready by like week 5 or 6, then you cut Zappy and you bring Milton onto your team, and then you have Maye, Brissett, Milton. because you know Brissett's healthy at that point. You've got Maye. If Maye gets banged up, you can go to Brissett. You don't have any concerns about having to go to Milton. I just wonder, if you're telling me, I think there's a little nuance here. I think it's more of a case that Brissett is more ready than Maye. Not that Maye's not ready, but I'm just, if Brissett gets banged up early and you throw Maye out there and you haven't settled your offensive line, then you're throwing him into the situation that you don't want to throw him into to begin with. So I'm interested that they decided to waive Zappe, not because Zappe's anything great, but because, again, he could have been that second sacrificial lamb if you consider Brissett, which I don't. I don't think Brissett's a sacrificial lamb. I think he's a decent enough quarterback. But if that's your theory, might not have hurt to have 2 to get through the first month or so until May's ready and you pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, I think, one, they don't want to risk losing Milton. I also think it meant something to them that all the rookies made the team.
Yeah.
Which they did first time
Now
since
Marcellus
97.
Dial on the team somehow?
Yeah. The other thing is, I wonder, there's a question about Bailey Zappi just stylistically fit. Look at the 3.
That's fair.
Look at the 3 quarterbacks they brought in. Big guys.
Yep.
Powerful arm. Mobile. Bailey Zappi, smaller guy, not as mobile, more dink and dunk kind of passer. Like, he's not Alex Van Pelt's kind of quarterback.
Who's taller, Zappi or Skaz?
I think
Skaz,
Zappi.
what, you 5'9"? Where you at?
Yeah, 5'8", right around
I was
there.
just, when you hear the, that means he's not 5'9".
Not 5'9".
By the way, coming back because Chooks was illegal formation for the 50th time. Sorry.
Oh, man, I yelled.
I looked up and saw the great play by Maye again to Osborne to only be ruined by Chooks.
Get lined up.
At least he took accountability today. So I just thought that was interesting. 617-779-0985, the telephone number. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Wednesday night. Alex Barth with me for another 45 minutes or so. If you have any questions about the Patriots, get them in now. 617-779-0985. We'll get to those questions, get to those calls. Also coming up, news and notes from the wild 24-plus hours for Elliott Wolf.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray.
So the baseball show earlier tonight. We'll get back to the Pats in a minute. But Carabas was on with Tony, and I was driving up, and I heard both those guys saying the Red Sox aren't dead yet. They're not dead yet. Royals surpassed the Twins. Twins aren't playing well. 3-7 last 10. Twins can't pitch. And they were trying to sell me, and I walked into the studio tonight, and I said, boys, the Red Sox are done. They're dead. They might be pulling me back in now. Win last night. Brian Bayo pitched like Pedro Martinez tonight. Absolutely ridiculous. 8 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. Kenley Jansen throwing 96 in the 9th. Tyler O'Neill hits a tower shot, 2-run home run. They win 3-0. So maybe I'll just say I was working the reverse jinx.
Need the help from the Braves now, though. 1-1 top of the 7th.
Yeah, come on, Braves.
Twins.
Come on. Do the thing. Do the thing. All right, so lots going on the last 24 hours or so, Alex, at Gillette. Ton of moves. What was the biggest surprise to you over the last day or so? Whether it was cut down day or it was today?
I think that they didn't trade for a tackle. Not that they would have gotten anybody great. I've been at the front of this charge that they're not going to be able to solve their tackle problems this season. That's going to have to come in the spring. But, last year they traded for Vidarian Lowe. They traded for Tyron Wheatley. I know they claimed a couple guys off waivers today, but one guy who's never played in an NFL game, another guy who the last 2 years has been a guard. And I think it's pretty clear at this point is not a tackle. So I was a little surprised they didn't get more aggressive there. I would say of their moves, Kevin Harris, I just thought it made a ton of sense for him to make this team. And I know they got him back on the practice squad, but I thought he was a player that had clearly earned a spot. They were operating. They were using him in practice like a player who was going to make the team. I was surprised they cut him.
Yeah, I was surprised by the Kevin Harris thing. I would agree with that. I was surprised about Shaun Wade. And it's not because I think Shaun Wade is great, but Shaun Wade is somebody who can play multiple positions in the secondary. He's got the experience for a few years being here now. And I'm sorry, you said it last segment about this idea that they wanted, the Patriots wanted every draft pick to make the team. That's the only reason I could come up with as far as why Marcellus Dial is on this roster. He was awful against Philly. He was awful against Washington on Sunday night. He literally has been picked on every single preseason game. He made a couple of plays at camp, but it wasn't like, oh my goodness, Marcellus Dial. And I just think Shaun Wade had played at least a little bit better than he did. You cut Isaiah Bolden, you cut Shaun Wade, but you kept Marcellus Dial. That was surprising to me because I just thought Dial was used and abused through most of this preseason. And I don't know if he's a legitimate NFL corner right now. I know Shaun Wade is. He might not be great. He might not be top tier, but I know he's a legitimate NFL corner.
So Shaun Wade getting cut did surprise me in the moment because for the final 2 weeks of camp, Isaiah Bolden started repping a lot in Shaun Wade's role. And you mentioned that versatility. They're not super depth at slot corner behind Marcus Jones, who obviously has an injury history. And I had Shaun Wade on the roster initially because I thought they needed a backup slot corner, and Bolden wasn't really doing that. Then they started giving him opportunities to do it. He handled it well, and I'm like, all right. It feels like Isaiah Bolden and Shaun Wade were essentially competing for the same spot, and Bolden had a better camp, and he was healthy. Shaun Wade wasn't healthy at the end of camp.
Yep.
And then they cut Isaiah Bolden today. So now I'm a little confused. But when Isaiah Bolden was still on the roster, it didn't really surprise me they cut Shaun Wade. So I guess it's a long way of saying I'm more surprised they cut Isaiah Bolden, but he's a guy I think will be back on the practice squad.
I'm just surprised that Dial's on this team. Maybe it's just a draft pick thing.
I would give him some looks at safety. I think there may actually be
they got
something
enough
there for him
safeties.
Playing at safety.
I think they got enough safeties. I might make the argument that safety is their strongest position.
It is at the top, but you can always use more depth. Guys can play multiple positions.
You got Duggar. Let's go over it for the people who might not know the depth chart. So you got Duggar, you got Peppers. Everybody knows those two guys. Jalen Hawkins signed a 1-year deal in the offseason. He's been pretty good in camp. He started really good, then a little bit down, but then came back up. And Del Pettis. who I think a lot of people at this point have heard about Del Pettis because the tires are being pumped.
The one UDFA that we can talk about.
And Marte Mapu, who knows if he's ever going to touch a field.
So the thing about that group, though, is Kyle Duggar's box safety primarily.
Yes.
Jabril Pepper's box safety primarily.
Yes.
Pettis primarily box safety. Mapu's primarily box safety.
I got you.
Your free safeties right now, true free safeties, are Jalen Hawkins and then Brendan Schooler. And Marcellus Dial, he's not going to be a box safety. He's going to be playing free. If Jalen Hawkins goes down, having somebody with a little more experience than Schooler, a little more experience on defense than Schooler to play those roles, could help.
Schooler, by the way, people might say, Schooler.
He was decent at safety. I shouldn't poo-poo the idea of him playing on defense.
I mean, he didn't completely lose his ass out there. I'll say that.
People forget, he was like an all-freshman Pac-12 safety at Oregon before they moved him to a receiver. He's not totally alien out there. I actually wrote about it on 98.5thesportshub.com at the beginning of camp. He had 4 picks as a rookie, as a freshman. He was really good as a freshman. I don't know why they moved him, but he can
special
hold his
teams,
own
baby.
out there. But still, having another guy in that free safety depth like that. Look, Hawkins is here for short term. Schooler's primarily a special teams guy. If Marcellus Dial can give them something and like a Deron Harmon role, that would be quite the find. I'd at least give it a shot. To your point, like he's struggling at corner. Give it a shot. See how he does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat him up too badly, but it wasn't good. Meanwhile, speaking of corner, who's your fourth corner? Is it Wilson or is it Austin?
So we're going Gonzalez and John Jones on the boundary, Marcus Jones
Gonzalez
on
and the Joneses. Yep. It's like a 1970s
question.
Group.
I mean, it's kind of a floor versus ceiling thing. Marco Wilson has more experience. You know, I think he's a little more technically sound. Austin is a little more of a ball hawk.
Right.
He's a little more aggressive, but he's a little more raw. I think you play that on the matchup. Like, I like Austin better in terms of just I'd play the kids and get them experience, and he has more upside, so I'd get him the reps. But if it's like late in the game and they actually have a chance to win it, I might throw Wilson out there because he's a little more of a sure thing.
I think it's Wilson right now. Austin's a little up and down. So if you lose one of those top 3 guys, I think it's going to be Wilson from the coaching staff. Another name that I find very interesting is Jaheim Bell. And he was quiet for a lot of camp, but then he was given that opportunity, the one practice where you didn't really have anybody else at tight end, and he goes out there and catches multiple touchdowns. I'm a fan of him. I think he could be a secret weapon for this offense. I don't mean he's going to catch 60 footballs, but I do think, kind of like a more athletic Pharaoh Brown in the pass game where like Pharaoh would like pop a play or two. You go, oh, man. I think Bell has that capability of you might look up and in one game he has 3 catches for 70 yards, pops a big play. I think he's a great fit for AVP's scheme. I'm happy he made the team. But do you think he's going to be much of anything if he still is on the team by week 1?
First off, most popular guy in the locker room today, it felt like, for reporters talked to. He was on cloud 9. Happy for him. Happy for him. He was really enjoying it. As for where he stands with the team, he is a good fit for Van Pelt's system. I think that's something that comes in time.
Yeah.
I think he's one of these players that you'll see his role build over the course of the season. You may not hear much from him, if at all. The first few games, he might be a healthy scratch week 1. But I've said this about Jaheim Bell. Everybody talks about him as the tight end, and, can he pass Austin Hooper as TE2, or can he give them that third tight end that they're not getting with Mitchell Wilcox? He's not like... We call him a tight end, but he's not really a tight end. That's just kind of where we put him because we don't have anywhere else to put him.
Yeah, this is a guy who ran the football a lot before a lot might be a little bit too much.
He played some running back.
He played some running back.
He played some slot receiver. Like, he can line up all over, and he can do these different things. He really is what Jonnu Smith was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then they used Jonnu Smith wrong. So part of the reason also I think he fell was... There aren't a lot of teams that have a role for him in their offense because he's a very specific player.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams, he's not that unbelievably, amazing that we got to create a whole new role in our offense for this guy. I think there's a lot of teams that just looked at him and said, we don't really have a place for him.
Yeah.
Like, talented guy, but if you're the Patriots, you're creating a brand new offense. It makes all sense in the world to take a guy like that because you can build in the role for him. But that's a more complex role. You're not installing that kind of stuff in camp. You're installing that as the season goes on. So he'll have a unique role it's just going to take time to build up, and it's really going to come down to just getting the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where he's effective, is get him the ball in space and let him create. You were talking about, Nick, before. I don't know that I haven't returned punts, kickoffs. I'd love to see him get a shot as a kickoff return.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious because, one, he's got the size where if they kick to the other guy, he's a plus blocker from there. And, yeah, he's shifty. He's got some wiggle. I'd like to see him on the kickoff return unit.
I just think he is, and that goes back to the whole secret weapon term. He can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah.
At South Carolina, he played running back. He played H-back. As you said, Alex, you can line him up in the slot. You can mess around with him all over the field. I think you get inside the 5-yard line. You can put him in the backfield, and you can do some fun things with him. You can obviously also put him in the backfield and make him that H-back and find him in the flat off the boot. I think there's a lot of different things they can do with him. And I find him to be a very, very interesting player for this football team. I think he can fit, but it's going to be up to Alex Van Pelt to find the best times to utilize him. And, we'll see if he can do that. I want to talk to you about Alex Van Pelt coming up and this coaching staff, Gerard Mayo, how he's handling things with the media. 617-779-0985 is the phone number. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Alex Barth with me for another 30 minutes. We'll continue to talk Patriots. And, is it time for Gerard Mayo to start saying less? It's coming up.
Sports Hub headlines.
Brian Martinez, Pedro Bayo, whatever you want to call him, 8 innings, giving up 2 hits, no runs, walking 1, striking out 9. He was terrific. Cattle's in for Murray. Alex Barth with me for another 25 minutes or so. Alex, you got a take. You walked into the studio. You said, I got a take. Share the take with people once you're done tweeting or texting.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know. It's less a take. It's just a question.
Uh-oh. You backtrack it already?
No. I
Feels like a backtrack.
I don't know why we're assuming he's going to announce quarterback tomorrow. I wouldn't say that's 100% certain.
Ooh. This isn't intel. This is a personal
opinion.
opinion.
Is me just thinking through it.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, nobody's told me anything. I'm just like, I don't know. If we go in there tomorrow, who's the quarterback? I haven't told the team yet.
I think this leads us to a fun game, though.
Yeah.
If it's not announcing the quarterback, what will Gerard Mayo announce tomorrow morning? Skaz, any ideas? Does he announce anything?
I mean, I'm hoping for content's sake.
Who says there has to be an announcement?
How about captains?
That would actually be about right.
His favorite cereal? I don't know what.
No, captains would be about right.
What if he walked up there and was like, Captain Crunch? That's what I got for you guys.
Captains announced when they're wearing the throwback uniforms.
Oh. The silver pants or whatever? Is it that's
no, like
be,
the red Pat Patriot.
No, I know. I said that going on to the other attire he could announce. I think he's going to announce the quarterback. That would be the biggest. That would be like a wrestling turn. Like everybody's waiting for Mayo to announce the quarterback tomorrow. My question would be, how pissed would Alex Barth and the rest of Patriots media be for getting up early, heading over at 8:30 for Gerard Mayo to go out there and be like, Jabril Peppers is a captain this year.
Look, maybe this is covering Bill Belichick as long as I did, and that's just why this is coming out. But it's been at no point has it been said that's what he's going to do.
I like it.
So I don't know.
It's a mystery.
Yeah,
we know Gerard likes to talk.
Although it would make the fact it's such an early press conference to me is because they want to announce it before it's like broken by Schefter or Rappaport or whoever.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. I just find it interesting that, and again, I think this is just me having covered Belichick. We're all assuming that's what it is, but nobody said that's what it is.
I would pop. I'd be frustrated, but I'd pop. I'd have to give credit to Mayo. If he went up there and just did not announce the starting quarterback, it'd feel like a bait and switch almost. All right, before we get to Mayo and his penchant for talking, I also want to ask Alex about AVP's camp. Let's go to Ryan and Quincy. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, I was just calling in because I have a question. Why do we hype up Mario Douglas when he had 2 concussions last year? Odds are, with how small he is, he's probably going to get another one. I'd rather just go with Jalen Polk and make everybody else fit around him.
So we hype up Pop Douglas because he's a great player. That's why. And this team needs great players, and they need playmakers, and they need explosive players on offense. That's what Pop Douglas is. Jalen Polk is not a big play threat. He's not an explosive player. He's a chain mover. There's a role for that. But it's not, first of all, it's not one or the other. You can have multiple receivers on the field at the same time.
Right.
And they should have Polk and Douglas. Ideally, like looking down the road, it's TBD, fingers crossed for DK Metcalf, TBD at the X, Polk at the Z.
Yep.
And Pop in the slot. Like, that's your ideal 11 personnel moving forward.
Yep.
But this team needs Pop Douglas. They need him for however many games they can get him. And hopefully at 17, we'll see if he can stay healthy. But there's an explosiveness that he has that nobody else on the offense, no, not even the receivers, nobody else on the offense has.
That's why you go out there and you get an Ayuk, or you go out there and you get a T. Higgins, or you go out there and get a DK Metcalf. Everything else falls into place. Like the Patriots are solid right now, I think, 2 through 5 in the wide receiver room for the most part. But if you can get that number one guy, the alpha outside receiver, the X that we've all talked about, it does fall in perfectly. Because, as you said, Alex, then you've got Polk at the Z, you've got Pop at the slot. You don't have to force Javon Baker, who's been more down than up recently, onto the field. You don't have to rely on Tyquan Thornton. It just all fits better. All right, let me ask you this. Is Gerard Mayo talking too much?
Too often or saying too much?
Is he saying too much?
At times.
Little too much diarrhea of the mouth?
I think he wants to be transparent. I think he genuinely means that.
Yep.
And I think he's learning on the job what comes with transparency.
Yep.
And I think, sometimes he'll say things and kind of realize the consequence of what he said in real time. And by the way, this happened to me when I started working on the radio. And then, he says something else to kind of cover it. So I think it's all a learning experience for him. I think he's learning in real time that, look, it's one thing to handle media as a player. It's another thing even to handle the media as an assistant coach. When you're the head coach, the stakes change dramatically. And there's not really anything you can do about that. And I think he's said some things at times that as an assistant coach maybe wouldn't get. An assistant coach saying them wouldn't draw the reaction of the head coach saying them.
Agree with that.
And that's been a learning process for him. So,
and he's come out and he has said, to his credit, he has said, I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm a rookie head coach. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. He says he's not a repeat offender. Now, you could argue he has repeated some offenses, talking too much. But I think some of the stuff, like the burning cash or whatever, I didn't take that too seriously, and I think you agree with me anyway. This team has spent money, even though some say they haven't. They have spent money. It's about, the groceries they spent the money on, not if they spent money on the groceries. It's two different conversations. But, I think sometimes it's a sense of humor, and people aren't used to that because of Bill. And so I think there's some times where he's saying certain things tongue-in-cheek, but there are certain times where he goes a little bit too far. I also think, he might not clearly get his message out the way he wants to, and I thought we saw some of that today when he was meeting with you guys, when he made it clear, like, oh, I'm making the decision, blame me, which I liked. I'm taking accountability as the head coach, but that was completely different than what he was saying last week, which was, well, collaboration and Alex and Elliott and the offensive staff. Speaking of Van Pelt, what would you give him as a grade so far for camp and what he's done? Because he's a polarizing guy for some, Bertrand.
I give him a B. I talked about this before. I think technically, mechanically, both rookie quarterbacks have made tremendous strides. How much did he factor into the plan for how much they were going to rep Drake Maye? I haven't loved that. I know some people want to jump on him about the play calling. That's the thing. It's way too early to do. They're running a stripped-down Madden playbook in the preseason. It's too early to say his offense doesn't work. He's been fine, like B-, B. I think he's developed the quarterbacks mechanically, which is the biggest thing. The development plan for Drake Maye leaves a little bit to be desired for me. I wish he'd gotten a few more opportunities with the top unit, especially over the last few weeks. But I also don't know how much of that's him, how much of that's Mayo, how much of that's Elliott Wolf. So it's a little tougher to say there. But I'm not worried. No. I know some people are worried about Alex Van Pelt. I'm not ready to stamp it great hire. They nailed it. He's the next guy. I'm not there either. To me, the jury's still kind of out. I think he's done a good job of what you could realistically expect him to do to this point, but the play calling thing is such a massive, massive piece of it that we haven't seen, and also cleaning up some of these procedural things, which, as I talked about earlier, you kind of have to look at it a little closer with him, but he's been fine to this point. But if they come out week one and there's a ton of penalties and it's sloppy and the play calls don't make sense, I'll be one of the first people to say, yeah, you got to wonder about Alex Van Pelt right now.
I think it's crazy to go to either extreme when they haven't played a regular season game yet.
Yeah.
I see some of this stuff with Elliott Wolf where it's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see how this unfolds. If the offensive line is not a disaster by week 5 or 6, you're going to be eating a lot of words. It could be, but we're not there yet, right? And so with Van Pelt, I agree as far as the play calling. I know your guy Evan, he wrote about AVP and was somewhat impressed about what he saw in the Washington game watching film as far as some of the designs and throwing a little bit of motion in the mix, some motion wrinkles, as Evan wrote. But the biggest thing is what you started with. It's Drake Maye. And here's what I'll say regarding the plan. Nobody is going to give an ish about the plan if it works. If we're talking about Drake Maye by the middle of the year looking like a legitimate franchise quarterback, a guy who, I don't want to say can't miss, but he looks the role. And then in 25-26, he ends up being a top 10 quarterback. It's much like the whole when are you going to start Maye conversation. We can have it in the moment, and it's fair to have in the moment, but we also have to embrace this idea and not be disingenuous about it that nobody is going to give a crap about when Drake Maye started in his rookie year if 2030 he's a top 6 quarterback. Nobody. And I feel the same way about the plan. We can nitpick the plan. We can say, and look, I thought he should have had a one more series against Carolina. I thought he should have started that game, and Brissett should have sat because I don't know what Brissett gains by one series against Carolina in the first preseason game. I thought he should have gotten reps against Philly at the joint practice. I thought they should have made this more of a competition, especially after the Eagles preseason game when Maye was going up and Jacoby was going down. But with all of that said, again, we can do the show today. You got a show to do today, and we can pick apart some of those decisions and say they should have handled it differently. But really, the biggest thing is, does he take care of Maye? And at the end of this season, do you feel like that arrow is going up? Because if you do, nobody, again, is going to care about how many series he played against Carolina in the first preseason game.
And I think something that a lot of fans get lost in is they look at the plan compared to other recent quarterback successes, right? Well, you know, the Texans did this for C.J. Stroud, or the Bengals did this for Joe Burrow, or the Chargers didn't do this for Justin Herbert, or this with Josh Allen, or, you know, on and on. This with Mahomes. I understand why it's so tantalizing to think that way.
Yeah.
Because you look at it, especially some of these guys that Maye is compared to, the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts, and say, well, if we just follow that plan, we'll get that guy. There is no de facto, or definitive would be the right word. There is no definitive how to develop a quarterback.
Correct.
If there was, it wouldn't be such a crapshoot.
Everybody's different.
Every single situation. And look, you can use past examples to inform certain things. Like, I'm not saying completely ignore them. Get the quarterback an offensive line generally is one that works out more often than not. But there's no guarantee. There's been rookie quarterbacks that had good offensive lines and still couldn't crack it for one reason or
and
another.
rookies that had terrible offensive lines like Joe Burrow. Before he blew his ACL.
He tore his
out.
ACL, and there's no guarantee you come back from that. Let's not, it's really easy to play this game and say Joe Burrow tore his ACL as a rookie and became amazing, so the Patriots should try to get Drake Maye to tear his ACL. Like, that's kind of the logic you're using.
He was handling it well before the ACL.
But that's kind of the logic you're using if you track it.
Yeah.
Even going for guys like somebody I meant to mention before is Jordan Love. Jordan Love sat for 2 years. Okay, but Drake Maye's not Jordan Love. Well, Joe Burrow played right away behind a bad offense line. Okay, but he's not Joe Burrow either.
That's the danger of the whole comparison thing at draft time too, right? Like, we fall into this, he comps this guy, he comps that guy. We're not saying he's exactly like that dude. It just, he has certain similarities to players, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Doesn't mean he's going to be exactly like those two guys, and you need to go through that development plan like those two guys did.
So, you can look at those, but to say, they're not doing what the Texans did for Stroud, so he's not going to work, there's no logic in that. It's easy to say that. I understand why it's easy to fall back on that, but Drake Maye is not C.J. Stroud. Oh, well, they're going to do for him what they did with Burrow, so he's going to work out. Well, not necessarily. So I think that's where some people get caught up because the plan has looked so different. Look, the NFL is a copycat league. We'll take J.J. McCarthy out. He got hurt. Or actually, no, let's include J.J. McCarthy. They all played a ton early in the preseason. Drake Maye's the one that didn't. Drake Maye played a ton late in the preseason. None of the other ones did. If Drake Maye ends up being the best rookie from this class, you're going to see no rookie quarterbacks play week 1 in the preseason next year because it's a copycat league. So, you can't go off the past. You just go off what you think is the best plan, and we'll see at the end whether they got it right or not.
And you judge the individual by the individual, not everybody else that's played the game before that individual. He's Alex Barth. I'm Nick Cattles in for Joe Murray. Murray's Musings next.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
You want a random take? Murray's got all sorts on stuff in the world unrelated to sports. So sit back, relax, and get your mind in the game and listen to the words of a grown man.
Well, our electrical situation at the apartment is outrageous. Our electric bill, it's to the point where we're just like, what the hell is going? Hundreds of dollars for the electric bill. Now, Kelly has worked. My wife, Kelly, has done most of the legwork on this because we tend to go good cop, bad cop. If it gets to a certain point, then I call and get medieval on people, and I don't want to pull that card out too early.
Right.
So she handles the initial. And she's been working on this for a while. And the apartment complex has told us that there's obviously a problem. Our electric is way higher than it should be in our apartment. But this whole thing, we had an electrician come by last week. Nothing. Couldn't find anything wrong, but said there's something wrong. National Grid came out earlier this week on Monday. They checked the meter. They say our meter is 99.99% accurate. So it's not the meter. But National Grid says something's wrong. But we can't figure out what's wrong.
Off the meter? Don't they get the...
We can't figure out what's wrong here. We don't know if there's like cross wire. We have no idea what's happening. And because of this, we now have to keep the AC on a little bit. You know, it's going to be a little bit warmer because we don't want to spend as much money because it's outrageous at this point. And the bedroom is, we have one bedroom place, right? And the bedroom, for whatever reason, the bedroom part of the apartment is much warmer than the rest of the apartment. So if you put the AC to like 70, 71, it's like it's got to be 75 degrees in the room. And I am not good with that. I'm one of those, like, I need cold when I sleep. So it's just miserable. The rent's already outrageous. I need a solution now. National Grid is just like, meter's fine. So now it looks like we got to get the electrician to come back out again. And I don't know what this guy, what do you look at now? He already said there's a problem, but he can't find it. I'm just, it's been this way for like a year. And we started to call people and bitch about it several months ago. And it's the never-ending story, Barth. It's the never-ending story. Hundreds of dollars. And I don't know what they're going to do. National Grid going to cut us a check? They're going to eventually give us a credit? They got to give us a credit, right? They know something's wrong.
If you're paying for electricity you're not using.
Like, what is going on? I think so moved in. And I'm wondering, you know, was there some shenanigans going on? I don't know what's happening here. All I know is we should not be paying this money for the electric bill every month. It's nuts. And nobody has an answer. Nobody. So we're just going to keep calling people and have people keep coming out to the house, come out to the apartment, keep looking at the same things and telling us the same things. And we're going to keep paying the same amount of money. I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know how to fix it. I can't fix it. I'm not an electrician. What am I to do? So the wife's in the middle of this. You live in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
Where you live?
Actually, it's something like this. I live in Quincy. So when I first moved in, it's gas heat and it's included. So I only pay gas for like the stove essentially.
Look at you.
I get my first gas bills $400.
Oh.
And I'm like, what's going on? They had me registered on like the full building gas instead of my unit.
I'm wondering, but they said we're not sharing power because when the electrician cut the power, nobody else's light outside of the apartment shut off.
No, but I'm saying like they had me when they signed me up for my address.
I know what you mean.
So there's four units in my building, so there's 5 accounts.
Yeah, it's like a block.
At my address.
Yeah.
Right? And they had me on the account that was the full building, not just my unit. So maybe you're on like the full, you say you live in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
So is it like one of those where there's like, you know, interior hallways and stuff? Because those lights stay on 24/7.
Yeah.
And things like that. Maybe you're paying for the whole building.
I mean, it's like one of the bills was like over $500. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's too much for one bedroom.
One apartment.
What's your AC? What's your AC on? You're saying so. For me, like you're saying 71's too hot for you. For me, I usually have mine in like the high 70s. If you're keeping
high 70s,
low 70s.
I was gonna say
If you're keeping yours in the 50s,
no, we're not in the 50s.
It might make sense, Nick.
No, no, no.
Chilling that thing, Nick. If you're leaving your freezer door open at night to cool your apartment, you might just be in the wrong here.
The one thing is we have 2 small fridges for craft beer, but we already checked those out, and it's not enough because we had those running when the months were like lower, a little bit lower, and they're still running and they're sky high. And the lowest we would go with the AC was 67 because the bedroom would be around like 70, 71. But now we're going 71 with the AC. And like I said, it's like 75 freaking degrees in the bedroom. And I'm just, Jay Beliveau, 77, at Nick C Radio on Twitter. Nick, you spent time out here in NorCal. I did, Northern California. In Placerville. I think it's pronounced Placerville. July bill was $800.
Jeez.
I've all but given up until the wood burns in winter for heat.
Slap a solar panel on the side of that thing.
Got some advice. We got people calling in for advice. Let's go to Brian in Leominster. Brian, what's up? What should I do?
What's up, Nick? I work in solar, and then I see like probably 8 or 9 electric bills a day. What's happening is National Grid is actually just raising all of the rates. So what you need to do is take a good look at the back of your electric bill statement from National Grid and see how much they're charging you for delivery charges. Because the supply charge is generally the same. It's around like 18, 19 cents.
Right.
But now the delivery charges are going way up. So imagine like you bought like a $19 pizza from Domino's and they charge you $21 for delivery. So this is just the facts of the matter, dude. It's National Grid as a whole being greedy.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the advice. Let's go to first Brian. Now we got Ryan in Franklin. Ryan, what do you got for me?
Hey, how are you, man? Nice to be on. I have the same problem actually in Franklin, but I have a 2-bedroom and I pay about half what you're paying. So just so you know, I'd look into where your electricity is being outputted to, specifically, you know, if it's going to exterior lights, if it's going to anything else. You may have a wiring issue where you're being charged for some community lighting or community energy in some capacity. Thank you very much, man.
All right, Ryan, thank you. I appreciate you, man.
You notice any extension cords going through your window maybe to a neighbor's place?
No.
You check for those?
Well, Ryan's in Franklin. I'm in Foxborough. I'm not too far away. I wonder if it's a similar issue. Bobby in Worcester, he's got some thoughts. Bobby, what's up?
Hey, first off, solar guy's full of crap. I work for National Grid. The delivery charges have been the same for the last 6 months.
We got Bobby. We got Bobby versus Brian already.
Company man here.
So what's the problem, Bobby? What do you think?
I think it's either you may have something connected to your meter where you need to do a main breaker check, turn off your main breaker. If your meter's still spinning, something's tied into your meter. Or it's something to do with your AC unit where it's working harder, which is going to draw more electricity because it's trying to keep up with the temperature you got it at. But the solar guy is going to feed you a bunch of crap because I want to sell you solar.
Well, I don't own a home, but thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it. All right, so we got all sorts of theories.
I think you got to fight. There's an extension cord running out of a window somewhere down the street.
I'm gonna have Skaz pull those phone calls for me and send me the audio so I can give them to the wife and say I played my role. I bitched on the radio. People called in.
Crowdsourced
it. Alex, thanks for spinning by, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Always love having you. When I'm in for the big guy. So here goes Alex Barth. Fantastic stuff for the last 2 hours with him. We got one more hour left or so. Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Wednesday night, hump night. You notice Skaz had nothing to say. He had no help whatsoever. Just like, take your expensive electric bill and shove it, Nick.
Yeah, you don't want my electrical advice.
The house will burn down. All right, we'll discuss today's announcement from Gerard Mayo in 90 seconds.
WBZ-FM and HD Boston. We've got the Patriots covered.
Back in the home. He's in trouble. A sack.
It's an all-new season for the Pats, and you'll hear it all right here. 98.5, the Sports Hub, the Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
A pretty good night at Fenway. Red Sox, Blue Jays, 3-0 win for the Red Sox. Brian Bello was terrific in this game. 8 innings, 2 hits, no runs, walked 1, struck out 9. It's an unbelievable night from Bello. Tyler O'Neill chipped in with a 2-run home run. So again, the Sox win 3-0. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, good news for the Sox right now. Bottom of the 8th, the Braves are leading the Twins 5-1. That's great. Celtics news tonight. They agreed to a 1-year deal with guard Lonnie Walker. Walker averaged almost 10 points a game for the Nets last year. It's an Exhibit 10 deal that allows the Celtics to give a bonus to Walker if he's waived after training camp and ends up playing for the G League affiliate. Gerard Mayo met with the media earlier today. No announcement on a quarterback. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Mayo also mentioned that City So dodged any serious injury on Sunday night. That's good news. Hunter Henry returned to practice. That's good news. Meanwhile, Patriots released Isaiah Bolden, Tristan Hill, Michael Jordan, and Jalen Reagor to make room for 4 claims today off the waiver wire. Those 4 claims were linebacker Curtis Jacobs, offensive tackle DeMontre Jacobs, defensive tackle Eric Johnson, offensive tackle Zachary Thomas. Patriots also signed 7 players to the practice squad. Offensive lineman Liam Fornadell, running backs Kevin Harris and Terrell Jennings, wide receiver Matt Landers, defensive end Jotham Russell, safety A.J. Thomas, and tight end Mitchell Wilcox. In other NFL news, Bailey Zappi signed with the Chiefs practice squad. Steelers officially named Russell Wilson as their Week 1 starting quarterback. Headlines are brought to you by our friends at Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. That's coverage, not courage, although they might provide courage. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Nick Cattles on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 10:30.
Let's talk turkey, shall we?
Blah, 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 blah. Oh, in the sports industry, that's what you say.
Got your talking head right here, buddy. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
I'm going to talk to the individual players tomorrow. I'm going to have a team meeting tomorrow, and then I'll get it to you guys.
So does that assume you made a decision, you just haven't communicated yet to them?
Yes, we've made a decision.
Past 10 o'clock now. Get a little more funky. Thanks for joining us as always. Nick Cattles in for Joe Murray tonight. Last night show for me in who knows how long. Of course, I said that last time, and I'm back tonight, but Labor Day comes and goes. Full-time guys are back. You'll have Joe Murray back throughout the football season, so this might be our last opportunity to have a conversation over the next 52 minutes. Skaz behind the glass on the 1s and 2s. Thanks to Alex Barth again for swinging by for 2 hours to talk Patriots. Before I get to Gerard Mayo, we have more people trying to help me out with my electrical issue. Let's go to Chris in a car. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, boss?
Not much.
So you also want to check what rate you're paying. I lived in an apartment building where it used to be an old farm, and they were charging a business rate rather than a residential. So I know other people that live in one of those apartment buildings where they actually have like a coffee shop in the inside.
Yeah.
That they're paying that business rate as well.
All right, Chris. Thanks, buddy. We're losing you. I appreciate it. So maybe it's the rate I'm getting charged. This is all good stuff. You keeping notes in there, Skaz? We good on this? Let's go to Paul and Hingham. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Nick. Hopefully I can help you out here. I had not an issue with that, but you ever think about calling or contacting Solve It 7? Because they're really, and make sure you say that you're in media as well, because what they'll do is somebody will call you back, the producer, and usually Hank Phillippe Ryan, they'll really dog the company, and when they hear it's Solve It 7. So listen, I had an issue with a landlord many years ago, and it took one call from them and it cleared it up. So
I like
just
that.
an idea.
All right, Paul. Thank you. I appreciate you, bud. Have a good night. Solve It 7. You have any friends at WHDH, Skaz? Got any?
Can't say that I have any inside sources over there.
Anybody listening to us from Solve It 7? Call Skaz off the air. We'll get these people. We'll get them. We'll get to the bottom of this. My poor wife's pulling her hair out. She's just talking to all these people. Nobody really has anything good. They keep giving her the runaround. To the electric company, then to electrician, electric company, electrician. It's annoying. But thank you to everybody who's called in. and give me some advice. Even the Solar guy who caught some shrapnel from a couple callers later. I appreciate you. All right, so Gerard Mayo, you just heard him from earlier today, saying that the Patriots have made their decision who's going to start, but they were not going to announce it today. Mayo has since set up an 8:30 a.m. press conference tomorrow morning. Myself and Skaz believe, along with many other people, that at that 8:30 a.m. press conference tomorrow, Gerard Mayo will sit up there and say Jacoby Brissett is QB1. He will start week 1 in Cincinnati. At practice today, Brissett led all the drills that the media saw. They did not see a ton, but they saw enough, and Brissett was out there. Of course, Mayo could kind of pull an okey-doke here and make the media believe that Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback, but then when the media doesn't watch, things change, right? He could do that, but I don't think that's what's happening here. I've said from day one, if you've been following me on Twitter at Nick C Radio, if you watch the podcast I do on YouTube, I mean, I've been saying this here on 98.5 for the last few months, last 3 months since I've been back. When do you start Maye? You start Maye when A, he's ready, and B, when you don't have a 5-alarm fire on the offensive line. If you can trust most of your offensive line and you think the young man's ready, that's when you play him. I don't think there was a legitimate quarterback competition. I'm not buying it. Drake Maye took 0 snaps with the ones in the joint practice. He just started getting reps with the ones at practice with David Andrews last week, and those reps were 4-1 in favor of Jacoby Brissett. This was not a quarterback competition. Gerard Mayo was calling it a quarterback competition because he wanted both Brissett and Maye to approach this like it was a quarterback competition. He wanted to keep their feet to the fire. That's why he said it publicly. But by all signs, all signals, all indications, if you've watched NFL practices, if you watch teams, how they do business, this has not been a quarterback competition. I would be stunned. I'd be stunned if Mayo tomorrow morning announces that Drake Maye is starting week 1 against the Bengals. Stunned. Now, what's interesting about this is even though all of us pretty much agree that Brissett is going to be the guy that's named tomorrow morning, Mayo did come out within the last few days and say that Drake Maye had outplayed Brissett. And what's really interesting about that is that Jory Epstein from Yahoo actually wrote a story last week. It came out last Thursday about the Patriots quarterback competition. And here's what Epstein wrote when she saw Mayo's comments about Drake Maye outplaying Brissett. Mayo told me Thursday, quote, if he beats Jacoby out, there's nothing else really to be said, unquote. But Patriots offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt told Epstein that Jacoby's, quote, way more equipped to handle the opening day, unquote. So that story in Yahoo, if you go off of those quotes, it certainly seems like Gerard Mayo is looking at this and says, hey, if one guy outplays the other, that guy gets the job. There's nothing else to be said. Meanwhile, Alex Van Pelt is paying attention more to the minutia, the nuance, saying, well, Jacoby's more ready for opening day. And it begs the question, I think it's a fair question to ask, do Mayo and Van Pelt actually disagree who should be playing quarterback? Mayo's been telling us that everybody agrees. Do we just take that as fact? Has everybody agreed? Or do we have a disagreement between the head coach and the offensive coordinator? And Mayo saying, yeah, Maye has outplayed Brissett, and he actually is leaning towards Maye. Meanwhile, Van Pelt, looking at it from the offensive standpoint, the viewpoint of the quarterback, understanding that nuance that I talk about, he's looking at it and saying he's not ready yet. Yeah, he's outplayed him, but there's a lot of other things going on here. Now, I don't think so because I think Mayo will inevitably go with what Alex Van Pelt says. And I don't have much of an issue with that because Van Pelt has the experience. He's the head coach of the offense, quote unquote. And so I don't have a problem with the most experienced guy on the staff. outside of, maybe Ben McAdoo, but I think he's even more experienced than McAdoo because he played the position in the NFL. I don't have an issue with the most experienced guy in that building saying, I think we should sit Drake Maye for X amount of weeks. I think he's not quite ready yet. I have no issue with that. No problem with that whatsoever. That's a big part of the reason why you brought Alex Van Pelt to New England, because of his experience, because of him being a quarterback coach for such a long time. So I don't think that there's some disagreement here. I think Mayo, when he speaks to the media, we've seen this before, sometimes he'll just say what he says, what's on top of his mind. And I think he said a little bit too much to Yahoo. He loves words, loves them. He might love words more than I do, and I do this for a living. Because don't forget, Mayo said that to Yahoo on Thursday, but then on Sunday night in the postgame with the media, he called Drake Maye the second best quarterback on the team. Earlier today, he was talking about, no, it's more about the body of work. So Mayo's been a little bit all over the place with this. Van Pelt has been incredibly consistent. And it certainly feels like and sounds like Van Pelt is strongly in the we start Jacoby Brissett week 1 camp. And that's been the case for pretty much this entire time. And just because you say Maye has outplayed Brissett in the preseason doesn't necessarily mean that he won this quarterback, quote-unquote, competition, because we don't know what's happening at practice. We don't know, behind closed doors. We don't know, what's happening in film rooms and in those meetings. We have no idea. Drake Maye is playing against vanilla defenses in the preseason, and it's Van Pelt's job to address that nuance, right? He knows the overall responsibilities of the quarterback every single snap much better than Gerard Mayo does. Under center, is he comfortable? How's he dealing with the line of scrimmage, especially when you get into exotic looks? I think Mayo has leaned on Van Pelt this entire time, and I don't know why any of us would think any differently as far as when this decision is made and who made it. I think Van Pelt made this decision. I think Van Pelt told Gerard Mayo who he thinks should start week 1, and I think Gerard Mayo is going to follow that advice from Alex Van Pelt because he has followed Van Pelt this entire way. Everything that's been done in this preseason, in this camp season, every single solitary thing that's been done regarding Drake Maye has been following Alex Van Pelt's plan. And I don't think Mayo in the 23rd hour is going to turn around and say, you know what? I know you want to start Jacoby Brissett, Alex, but I'm rolling with Drake Maye. I don't think that's going to be the case. 617-779-0985, your thoughts on the quarterbacks. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. We'll take your phone calls. Also, was the Patriots' offensive line as bad as we thought it was on Sunday night? That's next.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray.
What the hell is this? What song is this, do you know? Kind of sounds like, somewhat like 80s-ish.
It's labeled Ghost.
Ghost. Oh, and then the guitar came in. Yeah. I don't know if this is the same song. Ghost is a single by American rock band Bad Flower. I don't know if that's that. Sounded very 80s-ish, though. Especially when the guitar kicked in. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Wednesday night. Glad that you could be with us. By the way, I'll be on Friday midday with Paul Perillo, 10 to 2. Got to make sure I wear my white shirt, Skaz. Because the first midday show I did, I had all black on like I have tonight, and boy, oh boy, was it not good. I mean, I'm already white.
Those TV lights not doing you any favors?
Holy bleep. You see how white this paper is? I was like that white. I look that white on TV. But then, like any great coach, I adjusted, Skaz. So I rocked the white button up the next time I was in and helped a little bit. Like, there's only so much you can do to help this, okay? I understand that. This right here is broken. I get it. So there's only so much duct tape you can put on it. But I tried. So I, like many people I have to imagine, was petrified watching the offensive line on Sunday night against Washington. But was the line actually better than we thought? Here was Gerard Mayo earlier today.
Did Sunday's game and the performance of the offensive line and just the offense in general, did that give you second thoughts about where to go with the quarterback position?
You know, I think some of that stuff is being overblown. I would say we averaged 5 yards a carry, and, you know, the quarterback was it 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits. I mean, if you were to say that was the stat line, you would be okay with that. Now, in saying that, we're still just trying to get better. We're trying to get better at, you know, not only that starting 5 that we're talking about, but also just on the practice squad. And that's how we look at the practice squad as well. Like, these guys aren't here on our practice squad just to take reps during practice. No, we look at it from a developmental standpoint where all of these guys need to be ready to play. And I think it would be naive for us to say, you know, going to that first game where really no one has played 4 quarters of football, to think that guys won't have to rotate in there at times, no matter what the position would be just not right, in my opinion.
So let's talk about the penalties, because the penalties, I'm not talking about the play, the blocking. The penalties inexcusable on every level. Everybody would agree with that. I mean, you have like 10 pre-snap penalties or whatever the hell it was, 10 penalties in the first half. Just absolutely egregious, ridiculous, inexcusable. Can't have it. Can't have Chuks for, you know, lining up wrong and being called for a legal formation not once, not twice, but 3 freaking times in the same game. Inexcusable. And Okorafor spoke to, I think it was Mark Daniels today, and admitted, no reason for that. Outrageous. All of us can agree on that. But when you listen to Gerard Mayo, you might think, oh, that's the coach trying to put lipstick on the pig. But maybe not. 2 guys that I respect in this business, Greg Bedard and Evan Lazar, because they watch the film. And they pay more attention to offensive line play than any of us. I think those 2 guys pay more attention to offensive line play than all of us combined watching the Patriots. I respect their opinions. They know more about offensive line play than I know. Both of those guys agree with Gerard Mayo. Both Evan and Greg wrote and or said after watching the film against Washington that the offensive line play was not as bad as people thought it was. As a matter of fact, Lazar wrote this. After reviewing the tape, it's sort of, quote, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln, unquote, type stuff. But the penalties were the lion's share of the problem. Brissett and Maye were only pressured on 7 of their 26 dropbacks. It's a modest 26.9%. And you want to be under 30%. If you're under 30%, you feel pretty good about it. 3 of the pressures, 3 of the 7 pressures were on Chuks Okorafor. Chuks was not good on Sunday night. But other than Chuks, It wasn't terrible. The Patriots gained 37 rushing yards on 8 attempts in the first half for a solid success rate. So again, that was Lazar watching the film saying not too bad. And Greg said much of the same stuff. Not too bad. I think Greg had a core of 4 for 1 pressure. Evan had him for 3. Pro Football Focus had him for 3. So there's a few things here. A core of 4 is an issue. He's got to be better. He has had periods of better play during camp, but he got sent to the left side, and it was a mess. It was a mess. His pass pro was off. The penalties, not good enough. I don't know if he was upset because he was playing left tackle. I don't know if he lacked focus because he wasn't happy or, he just wasn't used to playing left tackle with the bullets really flying out there. I don't know what it was. But he wasn't good against Washington. He just wasn't. 4 penalties, 3 quarterback pressures, just ridiculous. And you're going against, the backups of Washington. So Chooks, not nearly good enough. That's an issue. Layden Robinson, I thought he had a rough night. But I'm not quitting on him because I think he's been really good during camp. And that was his first start. He's a rookie. Maybe things got a little bit too big for him. He was out of sorts. Had some bad moments. We don't have to relive all of them. He had some bad moments. But as Evan wrote, some of that is kind of the natural rookie up and down. Lazar wrote, he had a classic roller coaster kind of night. Made some excellent blocks. Only got beat for 1 hurry in pass pro. But then he made mistakes. Blew a block in the run game, had 2 penalties. Half responsible for the sack on Brissett. But Layden Robinson's played some good football. And I feel pretty good about Layden Robinson from what we have seen. Sunday night, it was, again, I emotionally reacted and said it was one of the worst nights I've seen from an offensive lineman. I still feel like it was rough. I saw it a little bit more harshly than maybe Evan did. But I'm going to give him some leeway because rookie. And rookies are going to have those kinds of moments. You look at the totality of camp, he's been good. So we found out that City So dodged a major injury. That's good news. He's been one of their better offensive linemen. And, if you look at the O-line, I think they got 3 guys who they can feel pretty good about. And that's Owenu, Andrews, and So. And I think Robinson is pretty much right there. The question is, are they going to trust Robinson enough to eventually allow him to start at one of the guard positions, the right side? Because if they do, and they want to kick Owenu out to right tackle, now you've got 4 out of the 5 guys. And so, going back after the joint practice, everybody was going crazy. I said, I'm not going to quit on this offensive line. From like 0 to 10, I was probably at a 4 or 5 as far as concern, as far as getting close to pressing the panic button. After Sunday night's game, I was feeling like I was at like an 8. But after reading Lazar and Greg and talking to Greg, again, those guys know more than I do when it comes to offensive line play. I'm kind of back at around a 6.5, 7. So I'm not punching that panic button just yet. But I am running out of patience. And I'm interested to see who's going to be out there week 1. Because if you have So, Andrews, Robinson, and Owenu, you might be okay. Not great, not really good, but you might be okay. Because Wallace is showing flashes. Look, if you want to run down the offensive line, that's fine. I get it. I understand your concern. But I will tell you this. The 2 rookies haven't looked bad. Robinson's had a really good camp outside of the nightmare on Sunday. And, the joint practice was rough for everybody. But Robinson's had a good camp. And Wallace has been showing flashes. And he was good on Sunday night. So you might have the opportunity to play Wallace at right tackle and play Owenu at right guard and play the best of Robinson at left guard. And then you got to figure out left tackle. So I'm not all the way out on them yet. But I am losing patience. We'll see what happens week 1 and how they look. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray, the latest on the biggest contract negotiation in the city of Boston next.
Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox beat the Blue Jays tonight at Fenway 3-zip. Brian Bayo was tremendous. 8 innings, 2 hits, no runs, walked 1, struck out 9. Again, he was absolutely freaking tremendous. Tyler O'Neill, meanwhile, hit a Big fan of pineapples, guys, if you're wondering. Big fan. Got some in the studio over here to my right.
You seemed a little worried about your meal pre-show, so I'm glad.
There were some instructions. My wife is something else. I'm a baby. She usually cooks me dinner at night and makes my lunch. Long story. I'm a germaphobe, anxiety stuff. It's yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good setup to me.
So she made some dinner for me tonight, and it was this kind of like a different dinner. It was chicken with some quinoa, and then some cucumber, tomato, feta kind of mix thing, and then hummus. And so there were like 4 different bowls, and so I was like, it's going to get overwhelmed, and I had to eat pretty quickly. I don't like eating quickly. Sometimes my system doesn't like eating quickly. So I was like, oh boy. But it wasn't that bad. It was just heat up the quinoa and chicken and then pour the other stuff on top of it was pretty much it. Then mix it up a little bit. It was fantastic. She had pita bread too in there. I couldn't eat the pita bread. It's too much. But love myself some pineapples. That's my snack tonight. I'm such a loser. You want to know how much of a loser I am? My hamstrings are super tight today. I went to physical therapy yesterday. I herniated my disc when I was at URI playing basketball. And so I needed surgery, like early 20s, just brutal. L4, L5. Who's out there feeling my pain, huh? Who's out there? Who's had the L4, L5 surgeries? Disectomy, huh? So it's always an issue trying to get physically better and stuff like that. So I went to the physical therapist yesterday. And all she had me do was stand up straight and then bend my knees slightly and then bend over at like the waist. But you can't cup your back. It's going to be like you got to act like it's a hinge. And my hamstring sucked so bad that I was feeling a pull every time I did the hinge. And now today, my hamstrings feel like I ran a marathon, like I'm Tim McCone. Just for bending over halfway or whatever the hell. Not easy getting old, Skaz. I know you're not old like me. Not easy getting old, man.
I'm getting there. I'm not looking forward to it.
It's like working with Kendra. I'm getting there. Stop it. Give me a break. All right, let's quickly talk about Jeremy Swayman. Give the fine people listening to this program an update. Bruins have over $9 million in space. Friend of mine in the business, I'd like to call him a friend, went on the radio this week and said that Swayman was looking for $10 million a year. Now, you wonder where Rich Keefe got that from, huh? Where'd Rich get it from? Who leaked that? Did the team leak it? I don't know why Jeremy Swayman would leak that he's looking for $10 million. But fortunately for us, Swayman was on the Shut Up Mark podcast. And here's what he had to say about negotiations.
You're in a big point in your career with a big contract negotiation going on right now. No one else really knows what this is like. Your first, presumably, longer contract. What is that like from an athlete's perspective?
If you were to ask me that same question a year ago, I would answer it truthfully, and I would say it's scary. It's a lot of resentment towards people that want you to succeed. And when you're not getting compensated for your endless efforts and doing what you do best, it's a nerve-wracking feeling because it's your family you're fighting for. And the answer I'm going to give you this year is that I've educated myself and that I understand the business side of it all. And it's given me a complete new mindset of understanding the business and how to react to it. I understand the cap is going up and where it will be in years. I understand my comparables and how I can't ruin the goalie market for other guys that are going to be in my shoes down the line.
Do you say comparable or comparable, by the way?
I think I lean comparable.
Yeah, I'm comparable. I'm on that side. Comparable sounds weird. Comparables? Yeah. That sounds better to me. Anyway, everything that Jeremy Swayman, it's late. Everything that Jeremy Swayman just said, okay? Everything he just said. Let me translate it. Give me money. I'm raking it in, baby. Everything he just said. And there's nothing wrong with that. He should want the most money that he can get. That's how this works. But everything he just said, I understand the business side. I.e., this ain't personal. This is business. I want to get paid. The cap is going up. Hey, Bruins, cap's going up. I know the money that I'm going to make off this contract is not going to hit you as badly over the next few years because that cap's going up. I understand my comparables. Hey, you know who's a good goaltender. How much money are they making? I was eighth in goals against. I was fifth in save percentage. I had that playoff run. If it wasn't for me, you don't even get to Florida. No chance. I was the hottest goalie in the playoffs, right, Skaz?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, like, does hearing sound like this from Swayman make you feel any different about the Allmark deal?
No, because I think they knew he wanted money, right? They know he wants to get paid well, and they had negotiations before the Allmark deal, so they had to have an idea as to where he was.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think this is kind of exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take a while, and he's going to get paid.
It's negotiating. You know? I've negotiated contracts. I had one agent in my life. That agent left me because they left being an agent. I'm still a friend with that person. Still talk to him almost weekly. But I had one agent in my life for the first couple of years. Every other contract that I got in this business, I worked on. That might have hurt me. I don't know. I was also a program director in Sacramento. I negotiated contracts with people. This is what happens. So I'm not freaking out by any means. But there's no doubt what he said during the Shut Up Mark podcast. There's no freaking doubt that my man wants to get paid, and he wants to get paid near the top of the market. I don't know if it's $10 million, but he wants to get paid at the top of the market. When he says, I can't ruin the goalie market, that is, I am not Tom Brady. Remember Brady, like other quarterbacks, would get a little frustrated because Brady would work on team deals, and he'd get paid money up front. He'd get his money, but the average annual value was never as much as Brady could have asked for. He could have broke the bank multiple times, but he wasn't worried about that. Swayman is telling you, I'm not going to ruin it for other guys, because if I get $7 million, the next goalie that's as good as I am is going to get $7.5 million. If I get $8.5 million or $9 million, that guy is going to get $9.5 million. And now all the goalies get paid more money. It's just like the quarterback market. And so when he says, I know my comparables, I'm not going to ruin the goalie market. I understand the business side. The cap is going up. That is, give me money. And again, that's what he should be asking for. That's within his right. Ask for as much as you can and see if you can meet in the middle. That's how negotiations work. I'm guessing that Swayman is asking for at least $9 million or so, $9 to $10 million. My guess is the Bruins are probably around $8 million, and they're going back and forth, and they're having a stare down. And like any other contract negotiation in the history of the world, there will be a deadline. And the deadline will spur the action. And as you get closer to preseason hockey, you might get a deal done. But right now, it's just a lot of posturing. Swayman did not file for arbitration. The Bruins did not file for arbitration. So it's just one big staring contest. They're sitting at each end of the bar looking at each other. Who's going to move towards the middle and buy the first beer? Like that's all that's going on right now. That's it. And I think what's fascinating about this is that each side does have leverage. Like you could say Swayman has leverage because Allmark got dealt, as Skaz brought up, right? You don't want Korpisalo being your starting goaltender. Sorry, Felge. You don't want Korpisalo being that guy, right? So Swayman could go, oh, okay, have fun. Try to win. Try to get to the playoffs with Korpisalo, who was a disaster last year. But the Bruins can say, you're not going to get the money anywhere else. Free agency is pretty much over for all intents and purposes. Where are you going? So it's a stare down. Might take a little while, but I still think a deal gets done. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Got one more segment coming up. We were all hit with a cold reality today. I'll explain that.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
Love ending the night with some Beasties. So I had a realization today, and I don't know how many people felt this. Skaz, I don't know if you felt this. How many of you were on Twitter today waiting for the waiver claims? How bad did that feel?
No, never great when you're picking up other teams' trash.
Sitting there with bated breath to find out which undrafted free agent the Patriots were going to scoop up off the waiver wire. I was looking at each guy that they brought in, and one of them was a 6th-round pick. I was like, we got to pick. Guy was actually picked. And you're surprised that Brandon Ayuk said thanks but no thanks? I mean, we're paying attention to the waiver wire. Not a good sign, as Skaz said. Not a good sign for your roster. When you're sitting there and you're waiting. They're going to get a tackle? They're going to get a tackle? Like this is the draft. How many of you were doing that today? I was. And then there was a moment. There was a moment of clarity, and I'm like, it's a waiver wire. I mean, have you ever been into the waiver wire as a Patriots fan before? How many of you did not even know the waiver wire rules until like this week because you were like, damn, I got to pay attention to this now? What is it? How's it work? When's the deadline? You can just pick up as many dudes as you want? Like Carolina picked up like 5 cornerbacks. They're like, any cornerback that got released, they were all over it. I mean, I obviously cover the team, the podcast I do, the stuff here at 98.5, and Skaz has got his job. He could keep an eye on things for Joe Murray. But, man, oh, man. This is a rebuild, folks. Soak it in. This is a rebuild. And I wonder how many of you will have patience. Because it feels to me that a lot of people are already losing their patience. We haven't even seen a game be played that counted yet. And people are already done. Done with this, done with that. This guy sucks, that sucks, this sucks, everything sucks, Wolf sucks. Take a deep breath. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and judge Elliott Wolf. I'm not going to tell you he's great. I'm not going to tell you he's trash. He's had the job for like 4 months. So, do you have the patience to sit through a rebuild? Because you still need a franchise wide receiver 1. You still need a franchise left tackle. Do you have that patience? They got about 15 free agents next offseason on this team. That was the reality of today, though.